Hello and welcome to the Nash Tackle Off the Hook podcast. Just to make you aware, this podcast may contain some explicit/offensive language, and if that's not your thing, you don't have to listen, but I have given you a warning. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
You don't know the half of it, but anyway. I'm skating on the thinnest ice known to man.
He said, and they put a poison in the tank that just instantly kills them. He went, and we've run out of it, so we cut their heads off with shovels.
Suddenly, bang! The whole boat exploded.
Take your sort of 8-inch long piranha and imagine that at 4, 5, maybe 6 feet.
I said, I've revived your dead fish. F off, he said. You haven't.
That was just humongous. It was... I couldn't believe what I was looking at.
I'm just battling this fish out and I know it's a black man. I'm saying I'll never be a naughty boy again.
If you catch fish and you return them to the water, then you are my brother.
Ian Chillcott, welcome to the Nash podcast, mate. How are you?
Yeah, that's a long story all in itself, but I mean, the main thing is thank you for having me and giving me a chance to waggle my tongue at a few people.
Not at all, mate. It's an absolute honour, and I do genuinely mean that. And a massive shout out, they're in the background there, Ali and Charlie from Crowthorne Angling, who have let us come in and film on a Sunday. It could get quite rowdy. There could be audience sort of, interruptions, but we'll do our best to remain professional, won't we?
It's going to be difficult. He's got his youngest son, Joe, there. He's 10 years old and about 10 foot tall and frightens the life out of me. So if he wants to get noisy, we'll let him for a while, okay?
And I think the swear clock's on, mate. So if anyone swears, he gets a quid, which is treble the wages he normally gets from his dad. So you might be onto a winner. In terms of locally and sort of what you've been doing, I'm guessing obviously there's the whole story around health, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about your angling as well. But in very recent times, what's been on the list?
Yateley, the North Lake at Yateley, really. I've known Martin Gardner for since the early days at Horton, 92, 93. I wasn't a member then, but I used to go up and see my mates, Laney and Jenkins. And I bumped into Martin a few times. So, he's been sort of in my life for an awful long time. And a few years back, he bought the west side of Yateley, the Pads Lake, the north, the Car Park Lake and the Split. And it might sound like I'm being a bit of an old man, but he has kept carp fishing exactly how I and many other people believe it ought to have stayed. It couldn't have done. There's no way it could have stayed like it used to be and become the industry that it is today. But it's just somewhere, I guess old fogies like me can go along and live in the past for a little while. But it's absolutely wonderful. He's just left it as it was, really. He's opened it up a little bit, get a bit of wind on the waters as you need to do. But in the main, they're much the same as they used to be. A few more fish, of course, but it's just such a wonderful environment, run by a great bunch of people.
Nice, mate. Very nice indeed. Now, where I wanted to start with this, because we could go anywhere, no doubt we'll go off tangent, but when we talked, despite you texting me and WhatsApping me saying I'm a dinosaur, you were pretty good on the old tech and planning stuff here, mate. And you've got a bit more tech in your future. There might be a little announcement at the end of this podcast all about that. I wanted to start paratrooper days. I know you're a para. I spoke to various people about it, but somebody also told me that it was always destined that you were going to be a para from a very young age. Is that right?
Yeah, it's you should have brought my mother along, bless her heart. She lives in a home in Plymouth now, and a long way away. I don't get to see her as often as I want to, but she's the one that used to come out the back door and find me crumpled up in a heap underneath my bedroom window, where I'd leapt out holding on to four corners of a sheet or a duvet cover, believing that's how stupid I used to be. I probably haven't shaken any of that off either, but I smacked my legs up a couple of times doing it. But I used to read the little books, used to get the little comics, and it was about a soldier who'd stormed the beaches at Normandy all on his own, an American airborne paratrooper, shouting airborne as he streams up the beaches, killing hundreds of Germans and generally having a good time. And that's exactly what I wanted to be. And I mean, just to put it all in a bit of a nutshell at the end of that, I've probably been the luckiest man alive, because all I wanted to be was a paratrooper. I knew I had to be fit, so I did all the cross-country running that we had at school. I did everything, all the physical stuff, did all the football, rugby, played every sport. Nearly played for my country at cricket and rugby, which was kind of cool, and played for the old Redcliffians for a while. then I joined the army, but I stayed as fit as I was, so I could be a paratrooper, and I became one. I got my wings in 1978, and I left having para pay after 22 years every month in my wage packet in the year 2000, and and then I made a living out of carp fishing. I mean, it's a dream for me. Yeah. I mean, lots of people dream different things, but for me, I hardly ever went to school. Because I used to knock off, get on the 339 bus to either Keynsham, Salford or Bath, which was my ultimate destination. Fish. A lot of people would have seen Pulteney Bridge in the middle of Bath, the massive weir pool that's there. And we used to go out there on a Saturday because, first of all, I wanted to go fishing, so we'd shuffle across the weir pool that's now all sectioned off, you can't get across, catch some minnows on a twig and a little bit of stick, and then we used to go out on the point there that sticks out into the river and run a little bung down there, a little grayling float, catch loads of jack pike. That was a good crack. And then you used to get a 6 pound line, size 6 hook, tie it straight on the end of your line, and we used to roll your trousers up and wade out on that weir pool as far out as you go, but without getting carried off. You should drag that hook through the silkweed, get a little strand of silkweed on that size 6 hooks, and used to flick it out into that white water, and used to catch roach after roach after roach. And they weren't little roach. We're talking 2-pounders. It was just incredible fishing, and it taught me. People say about carp fishing. I think the art of angling in any way is learning to angle, and I think that river and the Kennet Name Canal taught me all I'll ever need to know. But I spent a lot more time at those places than I did in school, which didn't make my parents smile too much, which I wasn't happy about.
I can't imagine my kid jumping out the window holding a bedsheet and then finding them out there at the back anyway, mate. So fair play your parents.
I think that was one of the least crazy things I did as a child, but it's why my head's a bit misshapen. I think that's why they had so much difficulty with it a little while ago, to be honest with you.
Talk to me about Paradays. What was it like?
It was difficult. Through the 80s, under Margaret Thatcher, you were committed to an awful lot of things. So we stood on standby for just about everything. I don't want to go into too many details. I'd love to write a book about it all one day. It'd be wonderful. But I literally ran around the world until 1994 with my hair on fire. And I went everywhere and I did everything. And coupled with that, the irony of all of that is I very, very often got the chance to go fishing. I caught marlin from Kenya, sailfish, just Murray cod. I caught a Murray cod, and I mean, it got banged on the head unbelievably. And I look at the state of that now. It's probably one of the worst crimes I've ever committed. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they're really in trouble. But it was an unbelievable experience for me, and I got paid for every minute of it too. And I shall never forget it. The unfortunate thing, it's a fortunate, unfortunate thing. I married Lynn in 1994. That was the very fortunate thing. But Lynn was a very poor lady. I'm not going to talk a lot about Lynn's illness because she doesn't like me to, and I respect that. Yeah. But it took me off the road, to look after her, and living in that airborne environment as I did then. It was no problem to all of them. I got called in front of the RSM one day. I went in to see him. I knew him anyway. He shut the door and he said, "You all right, Chilly? How's it going?" I gave him the full story, and he said, "Right, you from now until you get out the army, you don't really have to come in to work. Just report in once a month. You've given your pound of flesh to your country, and you take care of Lynn." And she's never been a problem to me, and people could look at it that way. But she was actually the greatest thing I've ever achieved in my life. But unfortunately for her, she's had so many illnesses over the years, and is still suffering. So it's like I say, if ever I needed any strength to get through anything, I get it from her in spades, because she's just suffered for so long with so many things. And it's so I will talk about her again probably when we get onto another subject a bit later on. But it was. I've had such an incredible life. I've lived my dream as a child. Yeah. Beyond whatever I could ever have thought it would be.
Was it as good as the dream? Like, you aspire to do something, then you actually do it. Was it that good?
Yeah, I think it was better than I ever dreamt it could be. Well, I mean, as a kid fishing, I mean, remember, I didn't know what a carp was invented when I was a young kid. It was was all about gudgeon. I mean, the first fish I ever caught was a little gudgeon and a little roach at the River Avon at Keynsham, and they took some older guys at school had taken me along on our push bikes. And what I used to do, living in Brislington, which is just on the edge of Bristol, I used to get on my bike and pedal up through Stockwood, down the other side, a hill called Hursley Hill, one of the steepest blooming hills in the country, down into Pensford. There was Acker Bilk's house there. We used to fish from his back garden so that nobody could tell us off from Chew Magna Fly Fishing Club. And we used to steal all their trout and sell them to my neighbours. And that was probably the biggest business I've ever been in. And
what did a trout go back in the day? What did you sell them for?
I don't know what we got them for. Actually, I can't really remember. I can remember like 4 of them being handed over for a 10-shilling note all those years ago, and it was quite amazing. And I used to collect. I had this. Everybody wanted a racing bike when they were a kid. What they are. These sort of over the handlebars, giving it rockall. The 5 gear set up on it, everything. I think it was called an RS16, a big chunky fat wheels on it, and it had these 3 panniers on that were gigantic, and I could fill that up with horse poo. I'd have a rucksack with the trout in on my back, put the horse manure into the panniers, and then cycle home, and I'd sell that all to my grandmother and her friends to put on their roses, and I'd sell that as well. And then I got a job in Robertson's Jam Factory when it was in Brislington. I think it's moved somewhere else now. And I was just standing there eating the strawberries and putting the green bit back on the conveyor belt, and then living in a toilet for about 3 days until I could go back to work. But this was at 13, 14 years old, we lived in a different climate in those days, and it's a little like everything, isn't it? People look at sort of the older brigade, and I don't know what they think, to be quite honest with you. I never thought anything of them. Most of the older brigade for me fought in a war, and but views change, and it can seem, it can seem a little bit different, but I think we're all I think we've all got the same goals, whatever you live in, and achieving them is the greatest thing you'll ever do, and you just keep driving on, even when you think things are impossible, and and it sometimes it was impossible for me, but I've got exactly where I want to go. I don't need to go any further.
Yeah, too right. You've lived your dreams, as you say, mate, which is a massive statement. When people think about it, but don't always do it, do they?
No, it's hard, isn't it? It's, I don't even think I was a victim of circumstance either. They were things that I wanted to do and I made happen. Not so much the carp fishing side of it, that was through friends that I made along the way, and probably my attitude to it helped as well. And, because I didn't want to make a living out of it. That wasn't my aim really in life. I just wanted to, I wanted fishing to be that release from, releasing steam from whatever civilian life churned up for me.
What was that like? Because I've got a lot of mates who are ex-military who say that adjustment, that sort of, different part of your life, if you like, is very much a struggle in terms of going to Civvy Street. If they go in and out of it, they're okay, but once they're at the end of it, if you like, it's difficult. How did you find all that?
It's I've got such a good story when it comes to the end of it as well, and I hate to paint a black picture of anything, and there are some dark sides to it, of course there are, but in 1994 Lynn was becoming terribly ill, and I was getting this time to go fishing. Now, we had a lake, it's still there, unbelievably. The club must be run by the biggest morons on the planet, think I'm banned for life from there, and I'm not. I'm banned. I got banned once in my life from there for a month, for 3 months. And Dave Ashburn, who was the chairman then, I'd taken Dave Lane fishing down there, and Kev Green, God rest his soul, had rung me from the Angling Times, had a £32 comment. He asked me if he could have a photograph of it. But Laney had him on his camera, Dave Lane. And Laney sent up a picture of me with the common and him with a £28 mirror. Well, they put the picture of me on page 3 with this common and Laney in the corner with the 28. Well, he never had a ticket. I took him down there on the siding. And Dave came down a few days later. It was 2 days to the end of the season. He said, I don't really want to ban you, but the committee think I should. You're banned until the end of... you're banned for 3 months, which... from that point was 2 days before the season started in June, so I never really got banned. But anyway, we had that water, and they were letting civilians fish it. at that point. And the first bloke I met, it was, and I wrote it in Light My Fire. The chapter's called Chalk and Cheese, and I met Keith Jenkins, and Keith, I mean, still is. It's difficult for me to say, and I always get quite emotional about it because I made so many friends in the army, and we'll talk about a couple of them a little bit later on. But Keith is more than a friend. He was such an opposite to me. All in his loud clothes he used to wear, and he'd have lights on in his bivvy, and the music, the rock music, used to pour out the front of his bivvy. It was just amazing. And we got in trouble with the amount of wine we used to drink as well back then. But there was me sleeping on the floor in my little Gore-Tex sleeping bag, as I used to when I was in the army and after it. And Keith in his massive 2-man bivvy playing all this music. You'd never have thought we'd have been friends, but we hit it off straight from the get-go, and it was because of Keith, really, and meeting Laney as well. I met Laney a few weeks later after that, and we became great friends, became known as the band when we did get banned from somewhere, and that was from Raysbury by a certain individual I don't even want to mention. But it was wonderful, and then I could go fishing a little bit more because of Lynn, but that led up to me getting out of the army. Well, I was chatting to civilians then. I got a ticket for Horton. Well, and again, I expect we'll come back to that. I mean, that just opened my eyes like eyes have never been opened. It nearly caused a bloody earthquake. I was like, oh my God, amazing. I'd never seen fishing like it.
Yeah.
And, and that's really where it began in 1996, June 1996. And the day before my birthday, we'll talk about him in a bit. But, it was amazing. And it eased eased me into Civvy Street. And unbelievably, the day that I left, I refused, because Lynn was poorly, I refused to do any resettlement. I didn't do any resettlement. I didn't even know what my pension was going to be. And I'll tell you about that in a second. It was unbelievable. I left, and I went in and handed my ID card in to a clerk that I didn't know. And he gave me a bit of paper that I didn't know anything about, put it in my pocket, walked out the gate, and that was the end of it, 22 years. And it changed a little bit after when people realised what had happened, and they trying to do things to send me on my way and that, and which was wonderful. But, I just walked out the gate, and I remember closing the gate, one of the guards closed the gate behind me. Geez, what a feeling of emptiness.
Yeah, I bet.
And I was trained I worked a long time in close protection.
Right.
And that's the job that I was going to do. And I've looked after a few very, very important people for a little while, but I just couldn't do it because of Lynn's illness, unfortunately. And, I would never blame her for a goddamn thing. And I just, I just thank whoever I'm supposed to thank that she's still with us and as strong as ever. And, I just didn't know what to do, but I'd eased into it. I think Jenkins and Laney and Reg Bampton, Richard Howell, his name is. He was the fourth member of the band who always seems to get forgotten. Reg, bless his heart. They eased me into it, and it was. I think the decision I made when I left about my fishing was massively important.
Yeah.
And I was offered a ticket on the Car Park Lake, and I think. One of the things that I'll always remember is a guy called John Coxhead, and when I went on there, he was so determined. So I don't think if you asked John to cast more than 20 yards, he'd be so out of his depth, if you excuse the pun. But I watched the way that he worked to catch those fish and the effort that he put in, and I thought, that's it. That's what I want to do. It ain't a case of chucking out 80 yards. Tonking it out with a load of corn and reeling them in the morning. It was such a massive effort, and I don't think he'll ever realise what a part he played in me becoming Mr. Chillcott, but he did. And it just, you realise there are civilians that have got a heart too, and I know obviously I'm more aware of it now than I think any man ever could be. But yeah. The ease into Civvy Street was made very easy for me by carp fishing.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Take me back to Paradays. The motivation or the sort of, I don't know, the deciding factor about being in the Paras. You said it was always going to be your destiny. Was it the adrenaline rush? Was it the buzz? And what was the actual realities of being in there in terms of like, it must be pretty hard wearing on your body. It must be pretty hard wearing mentally.
Well, yeah, you say hard wearing on your body. My knees feel like they're falling to pieces. Yeah. And of all the stuff I'm going through at the moment, I went for an X-ray on my right knee the other day because the pain is quite intense, and I thought it was falling to pieces. And thanks to my mother, bless her heart, and I don't know if she'll ever get to listen or see this, but the whole side of her family, from which I obviously come from, are big, powerful people. And my bones, according to the doctor, looked like I'd been made out of solid iron, and all that was happening was the edge of the bones were curling up a bit, and it really wasn't worth doing anything. Right. So I don't mind a bit of pain, so I'm just going to crack on with life best I can. But yeah, physically it takes it out of you. Mentally, you'd be amazed how frightened most of those men were to jump out of an aeroplane.
Yeah.
But the thing with that fear is you realised how driven those men were. And that is what makes a special force very special, is the individuals with the will to do that kind of thing. And I'm not a great talker about all of that, to be honest with you. It's something that's very near and dear to me, but it drove me on. And I sacrificed so much in the way of promotion and all kinds of things. I became a senior NCO, obviously, and stuff like that, but I didn't go on to attain commissions like a lot of my friends had done, because I wanted to stay within the airborne force, which I did for all those years. It was something I look back on, didn't do much fishing really, as much as I wanted to, but I don't care. It was a wonderful life, and I did some things that would blow your mind, if I write about it one day, of course.
I know, yeah, mate, it sounds interesting, that's for sure. The mentality behind that, of being a paratrooper, going through whatever that entails, and I completely respect that you don't want to delve into that, and then the same mentality to go out there and target carp. Do you think those two sort of help sort of satisfy each other in some aspect? Is there a link there, or is it completely different?
I think, there's definitely a link there. Of course there is. I mean, if I wanted to catch something, I went and tried to catch it. I didn't necessarily catch it, but as long as I put the effort in that I thought I should, I was happy with it. That might sound a little strange, but, waters back then, at the Car Park Lake, for example, had 9 fish in it.
Yeah.
Wraysbury, 125 acres, had 15, maybe 20 if you'd throw in a few of the mysteries that surrounded it, in 125 acres of water. And I left Wraysbury and I left the Car Park Lake having caught some of the named fish from both those waters, and it was enough. I never caught Mary, which was obviously the ultimate thing from Raysbury, and I never caught Heather from the Car Park Lake, but my ultimate target was a fish called single scale, and maybe I'll tell you about that in a minute when we talk about some of my favourite waters.
We'll definitely
it was your attitude can drive you on to better things without a doubt, but I'm not suggesting that my will to win, if you want to call it, or my strength of mind, it is better than anybody on Civvy Street I've met some hugely amazing people, and I think I've said to an awful lot of people, Jesus, if you'd have been a paratrooper, on my shoulder, my wingman in there at some point, I'm sure I'd have been happy you were there. I've met some amazing people, and a lot of my carp fishing, I think, is about meeting different people. I've said it before, said it loads of times, I've written it loads of times as well. I forget who wrote the actual quote, but 'tis the company, not the carp, that maketh the feast. And I often get that. I think back to the days on Horton and Wraysbury and the company I kept, and there was only those few people fishing those water that were company. There wasn't anybody else, and there were some amazing people, and some of them are still around, doing their thing today, and I kind of like that. But I think a lot of them were a fair bit older than me back then in the 90s, and I think they left a little bit, their heads spin a little bit when they look at what goes on today. You know, when I caught Jack in 1996, and I spoke to Kev Green again, bless his heart, at the Angling Times, and he said, "You don't sound that excited, Chill." I said, "I don't really do excitement. I didn't used to. I do now when I got my hair on fire. Well, you know, it's running around in my boxer shorts with my hair on fire when I've caught a big one." But he said, you do realise only 15 or 16 40-pounders in the whole country, 1996. So that in itself shows you why somebody from that era is going to have a slightly different attitude than the rest. Not a worse attitude. He doesn't think ill of anything. You know, things obviously develop over the course of time. If you can't accept that, then there's no point in being alive, is there really? But it was different times, right? Different times.
Definitely. I've seen that. I've throughout the people I've interviewed, throughout the chats that I've had with various members of different generations. Of course, things change, and accepting that and being able to sort of roll with the punches, if you like, is a skill in itself. But also that mentality around sort of people who've been either military, sport background, and the ability to apply yourself to a task and a target and achieve it has been pretty consistent throughout a lot of really top anglers, which obviously you are, mate, which you won't like me saying to you because you're very modest. But do you know what I mean? That is definitely a parallel that I've seen. My last word on the paratroopers for you. Yeah. Closest, sort of lowest, sort of scariest moment that you can remember in there.
Right, I'm going to say something. It's nothing about firing weapons. Okay. Nothing about bombs going off in Northern Ireland and stuff like that. It is about a parachute jump we did in Sardinia, and I'll tell you, it was something when I realised that equipment in the army is awfully more important than the men that are about to use it. It's not Sardinia, was it? Sicily, the island.
Yeah, Sicily.
I was no good at geography. I didn't go to school.
Me jumping out of planes all the same, mate.
And we went there, and it was high winds. It was just the roughest terrain you could imagine us jumping into. It was like the surface of the moon. And I was the brigadier was number one in the door on my. Remember, there's 45 blokes on each side of the aircraft.
45 on each side.
58 pound of parachute equipment on him, and a container that hangs below his legs. That becomes his rucksack when he's on the ground, with somewhere between 150 and 200 pound of equipment in it: mortar plates, mortar tubes, ammunition, water, food for yourself, radios, all the rest of it gets packed in these things, and you're all hanging on like this, and blokes being sick and all sorts. You'd never seen anything like it. And they went to see him. He had to put the headphones on from the pilot and everything. They chat. And they called off the heavy drop, which is all the machinery that was going to get dropped into the island, and let the blokes jump. And by the time we did, it was a battalion group, which probably about 500 blokes. There was 100 of them in hospital. And when I got back to the HQ, eventually picked up off the DZ, what we were supposed to do there really went by. And I went into this long room, and there were probably that many casualties there being treated by medics. And that was quite scary. But parachuting is an amazing thing. You say that, and I think of some of the happier things. I always think of happy things. And I took part in 1996. They asked me, Lynn was poorly, but they asked me if I'd go to America to take part in this in this exercise out there. There was loads of them, like the Ranger battalions, the 101st, the 82nd. It was an amazing event, and it was the biggest airborne operation since the Second World War at Arnhem. Wow. And it took about 24 hours to get everybody dropped in. They used 3 different DZs. Then you got 3 different DZs to land all the machinery on where the blokes aren't. And that's when you got to tab across and rig your vehicle and set it up, and away you go. And I was stood in that door. This is 1996. This is May 1996, okay? I know in my back pocket I've got a ticket for Horton. Okay, I've been accepted as a member. It's all I could think about. And as I went out that door, 2:30 in the morning, pitch black, you got just the sky was full of paratroopers, and you don't know how scary that is in itself, because they can steal air. They're not like these square steerable things. Military parachutes are round, and you can get air steals, and the last one that hits the ground goes in at about 100 miles an hour. And there was a few of those. I was thinking of Jolly Allen catching Jack, the net ripper from Longfield when it lived in there, with using a candle as his controller. And that's all I could think of as I'm going out the door. And when I hit the DZ, there was some master sergeant. They have to have medics to look around, make sure. And there's some bloke screaming for his life out there. He was some 9 Squadron, the Para Royal Engineers, and he'd smashed him. I found out eventually his hips had gone, thighs, all sorts. I was just giggling to myself. And he goes, "Hey, soldier, you all right, boy? You all right, boy?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, what you laughing about, boy?" I said, "If I told you, you wouldn't understand."
You should have gone for
And I just trotted off into the night with my rucksack and my rifle in my hand. And that stuck with me forever, that thought. I'll never forget it. One of the scariest sort of parachuting moments you could ever think of. And I'm thinking about Johnny Allen catching Jack with a candle as a controller. That's how bad carp fishing's got for me.
From that sort of para environment into Civvy Street and then into carp fishing, you sort of briefly referenced it, but obviously you'd been away, you'd fished everywhere and anywhere, caught all sorts of exotic species throughout the course of your time in the army, everywhere. You come back home. What was it? Carp fishing, what kept that buzz, if you like? Because if you've been marlin fishing, it's very different to going and catching some carp down wherever. Talk to me about how that resonates with you.
I think it might sound, again, like I'm being an old fart here, but I'm trying not to be. Carp fishing was difficult then. There weren't many carp about. And if you could find them, they were normally massively pressured fish. And to just get a bite, one bite a year, you were flick-flacking down the road when you drove home, you know. Your wheels would be 2 inches off the ground as you're driving, and it was incredible. And it was, I grew up as a carp fisherman, and I honestly believe that. My mother, bless her heart, used to listen to the things I wanted, and underneath the Christmas tree when I was 6 years old, there was a square with paper on it and my name from, and kisses from my mum on it, and that's all I could look at because I knew what it was. And it was Richard Walker's Stillwater Angling. And I still maintain to this day, a young kid could never read 2 chapters that were so different, but the titles of which made you think. The first chapter in Richard Walker's book, Stillwater Angling, is called Carp. And you turn a few pages and the next chapter's called Big Carp. And that, I was a carp fisherman, but as I said, we didn't know carp were invented in the West Country. Well, I knew nowhere where it was. I knew, obviously, up in Herefordshire, there was a Redmire pool. I'd never fished there, so I just caught everything I could. And it wasn't until I came to Aldershot that to get my parachute wings that I discovered the waters around that area that had been dug to build countless roads, mainly the M25, and filled up with water and got carp in it. But it was the difficulty of carp fishing that made me want to get into it, and it was because I was used to dealing with different people. We were talking about north and south earlier on, weren't we? Just joking about it, but you can YA man and Oche the New and all the rest of it. And I served with people not only from all over the country, from all over the world. For a few years, I served in a place we had Fijian guys there, and man, what a breed of human beings. They are just the most powerful minded people on the planet. They just come from an environment where I don't think they can lead on from it, but incredible people. And very often, as I said, it is the company, not the carp, that make the feast. But it was amazing, mate. Amazing.
Talk me through. No,
my head's in a spin.
Sorry, mate. Talk me through your first sort of coming back and your first, if you like, target or getting into that big carp scene. What was the water where you thought, right?
Well,
okay.
All I wanted to do was catch carp.
Yeah.
I'd grown up as a kid thinking about this fish that just do, and it knows everything. And they got their name because because they suck and blow when they feed, and nobody had a hair rig before 1980, did they? Do you know what I mean? So, you waited until that bait whittled down a little bit. You might get a bite because the point of the point of the hook's exposed or something. That might be the point. But yeah, I just wanted to catch carp. And I still do, to be honest, this day. I get as much excitement out of a 10-pounder as long as that moment when the alarm rings. It don't matter about brain tumours. It don't matter about anything, does it? I want to get to that rod and I want to get... And you forget everything. That is the joy, the utter joy of carp fishing. Or when, you got some fish taking some floaters. There ain't. If I breathe when that's happening, I'd be surprised. Or if my heart takes a beat, I'd be surprised. But when you get a bite, it nearly flies out your chest, and that's what makes it so good. But big carp fishing, I have to lay all the blame at Keith Jenkins and Dave Lane's door. When I met Keith, he was on Horton. He'd already caught Jack. And I haven't sent you this photograph, and I should have sent it, and you could have pinged this up nicely on the screen. It was an amazing story. 1995, Christmas coming up to 1995, and I didn't know I had the Horton ticket that year, but we knew I'd been named down for it and everything. And Keith cut out a picture of Jack that he held in his hands and put a picture of me behind it like I was holding the card and stuck it on top. And it's a big white Christmas card, and he drew ivy around the corner, and in the middle is this picture of me holding Jack, and on the bottom it's got "Only Dreaming." And he sent it to me. I didn't know I had the ticket, and we're going to talk about favourite waters in a minute, so I'll tell you how it happened. But that's what he wrote on that card, and approximately 6 months later, that dream ended. And but they drove me on. I used to talk to Dave, and Dave, I spoke about a guy called John Coxhead earlier on, who roved around like a raving lunatic, unbelievable, but it just so effective. Laney was the same, and he still is to this day. Yeah. To be honest with you, I see him with his, he takes this and that, and he's got an electric barrow now. Well, you got to be a proper old man if you want one of them things. we all like a bit of exercise, don't we? I can't believe they make them. But anyway,
I'm not going to tell you that my barrow's a power barrow. We'll gloss over that. I edit it out.
I don't blame you. But it's my bit of exercise, and I want to keep, get the old pulse up a bit and get moving. But Laney flew around everywhere, just didn't care, and he was the first consultant I'd ever met as well, and he was doing some stuff with Cliff Fox at the time, and they were just inventing or just creating the Evolution bivvy, which was it was probably one of the greatest bivvy inventions going. It opened so many minds to different things, and he had that, and we broke hundreds of them trying them out. I still got in my loft. I've still got one or two of those that Laney threw at me to test, and I for us. I ain't got the time. I can't test everything, and you can't do that as a consultant either. You can only seriously talk about the products that you use for any length of time. But they were amazing, and he introduced me to a few Fox things along the way as well. The Series 2 hook. Many of the big fish I caught around that time were on Fox Series 2 hooks, and but I used a little bit of everything. But he sort of, I thought, well, if he can do it, maybe I can. But I never really thought that's where I would end up. But they talked about the fish they caught, and it was amazing. When they'd only go to Chalk Farm, this army lake, in the winter. So they'd spent the summer, the warmer months, chasing that target. And Laney'd get there early, say he'd get there in October. And so I've had that fish I was after, and it was like a 42 from somewhere. And we used to drink a load of wine, far too much of it, and to celebrate. And then Jenkins would arrive because he'd had like the lady out of Horton or something. And so he decided to get the targets that they wanted. And it wasn't, I've just put that £40, I'll see if I can catch another one today, like it is today. Yeah. That was the year. That was that effort, that amount of effort he'd put in to catch that fish. And that's probably why the old cut flowed a little bit more, seriously, because it was the steam. You could let off the steam. That released the tension of trying to catch a single fish in a year, and you didn't care about anything else. Yeah. You wanted to catch that particular fish. It was... driven by different things. You know,
Yeah, of
it
course.
doesn't make anybody better or worse or silly or stupid. It's a different environment, isn't
course
it?
it is.
And but that drove me on to catch fish. And yeah, my first jump into that was to get a car park lake ticket, which I got in 1999, the winter of 1999. I was given it. I didn't go. I walked over there and had a look and had a plumb around. Obviously, with no weed, it gave me a chance to have a feel for it. But I remember I used to sit there on the point in the Trumpton swim. I never had a ticket. I wasn't fishing. I had the ticket, but I sit on the little boards there on Trumpton and look at it and think, there's 9 carp.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the smallest one was Pearly Tail, I think it was then. She was about sort of 28, 29 pound. There was Uglo at 33, and all the rest of them were 40 plus. And you know, it's to climb the odd tree. Lewis Reed, he was there an awful lot. I think Lewis had he was the person who caught the Dustbin before me, and he caught it. It was quite wintry actually, in 1990, winter of 1995, or just as winter was starting, and. Yeah, I think it was then. I think about it, he'll probably ring me up later and tell me off. But I know he caught it that before I got there. And he's climbing trees and watching these fish and thinking, how the hell you were ever going to catch him, you know? You could never create. It's awful, and I was going to say what you can today, and I don't think that's the right thing to say, but you trying to create competition between fish. That's what makes carp fishing easier when you're creating competition, and you just couldn't do it. You'd watch them feeding on a spot, and there'd be one of them picking up half a boilie and a bit of emp every half an hour, and there'd be 4 more of them over there thinking, I'm just not bothered.
Yeah.
They swim over there, suck a few snails off the weed and then disappear.
I think that's what got me. Like, I've talked to a fair few people before about the same environments and the same sort of fishing that you're talking about at that time. And I think it weren't a case of not seeing them. You were seeing them all the time. It's just that they weren't having it, and you were waiting for that one particular chance if the stars aligned.
When you got a chance, it always used to amaze me, and I used to think, well, how did I get that chance?
Yeah, exactly.
But they were almost like, I don't know how to put it. This is the worst thing that we do, is give them human traits. It makes them sound like, they got the brain half the size of my little fingernail, and they don't think about anything, do they, Carp? They think about safety, comfort, sex only once a year, bless their hearts, and food. That's it. They don't think about anything else.
Carp, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. You just stare at them out of them trees and just, how the hell am I ever going to catch one of you? And when I, retrieved my head out of my ass and saw the light, I realised how I could. And it was, again, little John Cox said, bless his heart, I think he led so many people up a path he never really realised about. Steve Pagalatos was one of them as well. You don't see anything of Steve anymore. But I think because carp fishing, to be honest with you, quite simply, people of that ilk, there's too many carp to fish for.
Yeah.
And this is going to sound an awful thing, but people like John, it's too easy.
Yeah.
Do you know, it needed to get John going and get his blood going, and Steve, they were pretty much the same when I saw them in action. That's the style they wanted to fish, and they didn't want hundreds of carp in there. They wanted to be looking at a few that they really wanted to catch, and but the Car Park Lake, really, for me personally, that's where my big fish thing really began. But I'll tell you, that could be a bit of a lie, because I caught Jack in 1996.
Yeah.
But I was in the army then, and with Lynn being poorly, there were, although it might not have seemed it to Lynn, and I always apologise to her, that carp fishing might have looked a little bit more important. There were more important things to think about in the 90s. But
we got to go there. We're at Horton. The Jack story, mate. It's got to happen. Talk to me.
It was, again, it's part of that dream, isn't it? You can lie there at bed. It keeps me awake thinking about fishing.
Yeah.
But even now, 60 bloody two next birthday. I just can't believe I'm that old. You think I've whacked the counter, my finger will fall off or something. An arm's just about to fall off. I don't know. But it can still keep me awake now
Yeah.
if I'm going fishing somewhere and I'm thinking about it all the time. I'm thinking this, thinking that, especially if I'm going to be going. 9 times out of 10, I'm looking at an alarm clock half an hour before it's rung to go fishing. And I whack it and go, just get going. It's crazy. I'm like a child. It really is. But, and long may that continue. I don't want it to be any different. But the Jack story, I went up to Horton. I got a ticket for it, which just blew me out the water. Again, it was one of those places, if you got 2 fish in a year, you were doing well. 1's lucky, 2's skill. That was the common motto around there, I'd hear people say. And it's unbelievable. The main part of this story is going to be a 49-pound carp. But the story is even better when I tell you, after I've told you that story, about the first fish I caught out of Horton. The first session I did up there was just a social. Richard Sangram, Rob Tuff. It was just crazy. There's a pub in there, 50, 60 yards out of the way. Yeah, mate. And unfortunately, I spent a bit too much time up there and didn't do a lot of fishing. And I got home, took one look at Lynn, and thought, no, if you're going to be away from her, mate, let's make it count,
Right? Was that the thinking behind it?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I don't want to waste my time.
Yeah.
I've had issues from the past that upset my rhythm now and again. I'm not going to go into.
Yeah.
We'll talk about one of them a little bit when we get to some of my other friends through it all. But, I went home and thought, no, I can't do that. If I'm going to be away from it, I want it to work. And I arranged to go down. It was the 6th of June. And I was going down with Keith to have a session, and I got there. I got a swim in Weedy Bay, a sort of tiny little bay, and the fish used to get in there just to have a little roundabout and then swim out into the open water. But it was a great spot to fish close in, and Keith got a swim up to my left. And I said to Keith, I got there earlier than him. I said, look, I've seen a few fish come into the bay down to my right. I said, I baited it up. I said, I'm not going to fish it tonight. I'm going to fish it first thing in the morning. I want to get a bait in there. So what I want you to do is climb the tree and tell me when there's nothing there, and I'll drop the hook bait in. I went down, I just had a handful of the grains we were using then. This was the original grains. What a bait that was. Yeah. As Tim Paisley said, it probably had as much effect on carp fishing as the hair rig did. It was amazing stuff. Anyway, I put it into the wall. Keeps up the street, no, nothing there, boy, nothing there. This is like 4 a.m, the light's just coming up, and I put it in. I said, anything there? He said, no. And I put it down, and I'm moving back. I was sort of moving on, my butt cheeks are going back like that. I was like, I'm going to scare him. And all of a sudden, the line's like coming off the reel. I go, oh no, I've caught it on something. I thought I'd caught it on a nettle or something, and it's obvious a fish. I'm screaming like a little kid, and this thing's like roaring around in the bay, fought like crazy. And this is going to sound a little bit cheap and nasty. It was a little mirror for Horton.
Yeah.
It weighed 20 pounds and 12 ounces. And I forget what somebody gave it a name, and that's what it was. And I did not care. It mattered not to me what its name was. It was a carp from Horton, and it was a perfect little mirror, and it was just so wonderful. And Keith took the photographs, and we were like, how much wine can we drink tonight? It's going to be mad. Well, anyway, a couple of hours later, Keith was, I never cook when I'm on the bank. I never, ever cook anything when I'm on the bank. I have tea, but I eat, I don't eat anything nowadays anyway, but back then I'd have like a bit of ham or something. That's all. I never cook anything on the bank. Keith, the master chef, mate. He used to
full
cook.
spread.
Oh, mate, the full out in everything. You'd have starters, main meals. Anyway, we had breakfast, which was probably some mushrooms and a couple of eggs and whatever. I said, Keith, I just want to get off and have a walk and get around and walk the lake. And then Keith, I'm not being hard on him, but that ain't Keith's type of fishing, really. Okay. Keith likes to just get himself set up, set the traps, and let's see if they'll go. And he does it very well. We went off walking, went down, and we're heading towards the lodge now. And the last swim on that bank is the plateau swim.
Yeah.
And in it was, I don't like while they're still alive to call him one of my heroes, but I do call him heroes, which is Peter Springate, Sir Peter, as he's known, and quite rightfully so. Epic. just an epic man. People just don't realise how much he did for carp fishing as it stands today, and he gets absolutely nothing out of it.
Exactly.
Nothing. But anyway, met Peter. What a lovely guy. To meet one of my heroes.
How was that? Meeting a
I was a little bit dumbfounded, and I understand. This is going to sound a little bit. Look at me. Yeah, but people at shows are a bit like that sometimes. They come, I never thought I'd get to shake your hand and thank you and all that. Wow, it is a little. You get used to it, of course you do, but it is a little bit unnerving. I met Peter, and I'm like, yeah. Was that good morning? And he's such a quiet,
unassuming
man. He'd been in there for 7 days, and he was just sort of packing up his kit. Anyway, we went on our travels and we got up to the church bay, which is more or less directly opposite where we were. And you could see him on the surface. There was Jack, No Name. We spotted the lady on the surface. And I'm getting a few mixers out. And Jack, for the best part of 20 yards, followed one of them. Sorry, I was supposed to be speaking here.
That's my nod for the mic there, mate.
I'm being directed, which I need. It followed my mixer all the way down for about 20 yards with this thing about 4 inches in front of his nose, and it's just going da 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 da, da, and all of a sudden it just swam away and disappeared into the depth. I thought, that's it. That's going to be my only chance of ever catching him. I went back into the back of the bay, and I found a load of fish under. Well, a load for there. It was a load. It was about 6 or 7 of them under some snags, and I put I'd managed to whittle down a bit of cork and a pellet, and I'd got it onto a hair. I wanted it to sink on a really long nylon hair inordinately slowly to the bottom, because every time I put something in, those fish would turn around and pick it before it hit the bottom.
Yeah,
they never hit anything up the bottom. Yeah. And I thought, how am I going to do this? And I put a tiny little lead on. I thought, I don't like little leads. How are they going to hook themselves and all this kind of thing? So I nudged myself a bit nearer, got a big one out, got a 4-ounce lead out. I lowered it down. All of a sudden, Jack's turned round and he's coming straight for it. It's sinking like that. And I know he's going to have it. And a 4-ounce lead landed from the other side of the bay, a bloke had cast.
No.
And he knew I was there. Thankfully, they just put up a little gate there, a little barbed wire gate, and I didn't have my keys on me, because if I could have got through there, he would have been carp fodder for a few years while they picked his bones. I was so annoyed. But thankfully, Keith calmed me down, and that was my second chance at the big one in the lake. I was like, oh my God, I'll never catch it. It's never going to happen, is it, for me? Anyway, I should have said, before we left Peter, I'd put a bucket in the plateau swim.
Right.
And said, I'll have that swim when you go then, Pete, when you're gone. He says, yeah, no problem. He said, you've got an hour and a half if I'm gone before you get back. Anyway, we went all there and they saw nothing else, had a quick brew in the swims we were in, packed my gear away, and I'm going down. Pete's just finishing off. Phil Thompson arrives from Raysbury with Dave Lane. And we can see all the fish out on the plateau. That's why it's called this. And I've got Dave up the tree. I've got Phil on the ground. They're giving me, do this, do that, shouting, screaming and going. Keith's there. I think there were a couple of other people dotting about. Saying, oh, my God, you've got all the fish in front of you. This is mental. And I'm thinking, I know what I'm going to do here. I was going to put a zig out.
Yeah.
And people are going, yeah, just get a bit of foam off your flip-flop or put a bit of black foam. That's what they want. I thought, no, it's going to be a mixer. Yeah, no, they like a mixer. They must like a mixer. So I put 2 mixers on the air, 8-foot hook link, and Keith, bless his heart, called it up in his little teacup and stood behind me and launched it out. It landed well past the plateau, so I've just reeled it as quickly as I could, so there's no splash on top of them, and it donked. I thought, yeah, perfect. Dave's up the tree now, and I'm getting a running comment. He's on his shoulders, he's coming up, oh, and he's turned away. Oh, there's no name, oh, and he's turned away.
Is this on the surface?
Yeah, right on the surface. Yeah, right on the surface. Okay. Right on the surface. And all of a sudden, this massive, great big black back appeared over the hookbait. And I said, has he took that? And Dave's going, oh, no, I can't see it. I don't know. Because the wind kept picking up the ripple, just taking the light off the surface. And all of a sudden, the bobbin went, boop, and you just saw the rod leaning over, and I've hit it. And, I've started playing a fish. And as I'm playing it, because it's so close to the lodge, there's more and more people gathering in the swim, and the swim at the back of it went up like that, and it was like a grandstand. There must have been like 15 people there in the end, and my knees were knocking, and I've slowly got it in. It got rid of the weed that was on it, and about 20 yards out, it just rolled, and there's that single clutch of scales in its flank, and I knew what it was. And man, we were talking about frightening experiences earlier on. I think this is one of the most frightening I've ever had in my life, because you're playing the biggest carp in the lake, and I just kept on going, and unbelievably, because of that long hook link, I've had to step back, for the netting, and people are closing in between me and the net, and I'm like, I can't see, and I actually never saw it go into the net that Laney was actually holding at that time. And he's going, it's Jack, and I blew up. I thought the top of my head was going to come off. I was just so excited, and I don't know, moments like that in carp fishing. They're unrepeatable. It's just everything. I'd never caught a 40 pounder at that point. And when we got it out and got her onto the mat, 49 pound and 4 ounces. Yeah, on a 10 pound hook link, size 6 hook. And it was an amazing moment, and to hold that fish up. And when I look back at that video and look at pictures of Jack, I've got a picture that Chris Ball took in 1992 in my little man cave of him coming up and just taking a mixer. It's the most perfect photograph of Jack. It's a very famous photograph. Yeah. And I look at that, and I just, we want to thank people for things a lot, but it's those old fish that gave us this industry. And people seem to forget about those animals that just lit up so many fires and made so many people as wealthy as they are today, and just as importantly as happy as they are today with carp fishing and the way that it's gone. And I look back and I always doff my cap to him when I walk past him, because it was such an amazing event. And really from that point on, and I guess we're going to talk about writing and stuff like that, but that is what made me, I never realised, I've written sit reps, reports in the Army Patrol reports, stuff like that, where you have to write in a certain way, and I never realised that I could actually write in a very, very, I think it was Kev Green again from the Angling Times, and I seriously miss that guy. He gave me so much good advice over the years, not so much about fishing, but about writing and the industry. He was such a lovely man. He rang me. He said, write me 1,000 words about the catcher. And I did the same for Carp Talk, because that was running at the time. And Kev said, you write as you speak. He said, it's such a rare commodity. People can't write like that. He said, you need to do something with that if you can. And bless his heart, I did. And but he was an amazing man, and pointed me in the right direction. But that fish just blew me away, and everybody that was there, everybody was in that swim.
We've got it. You sent the footage through. I watched the video the first time when you sent me the file of images through, and I thought it's the atypical sort of old school like mega scene. It's how you picture it, being obviously a bit younger, thinking that's exactly how it was back then. Everyone was there. Everyone was having a laugh. It was as it should be, if you like. It was like textbook big carp,
absolutely.
Old school
The only thing I don't like about it is Peter Bond, not Gary Bond, but takes him out of the water. Well, I'd had a bit of a parachuting whoopsie on Everleigh DZ down in Salisbury Plain about a week before, and I'd really hurt my back. And what I didn't want to do was put it out again. And I asked Peter to get the I didn't think I was going to be able to pick it up. I thought I was going to get on my knees and hold it on, just put my hands underneath it on the mat. But, the old adrenaline, innit? I was that pumped with it. I could have carried that thing around the lake 20 times, I think. It was unbelievable. But it's the only thing I don't like about it. But it was an amazing day. They all shook our hands. Me and Keith sat on he's got this on video. I haven't got the video. And he's videoing the sunset on Horton. We're sat on the lodge steps. I think we might have been a bit tippled, actually, at the time. And he's going, wasn't that wonderful? And I'm going, yeah, that was a bit of a day, wasn't it, Jakes? And it was the 7th of June. This is my second session on Horton, and I was 2 fish to the good. You can't imagine how I felt about it. Laney stayed there the night, and so did Phil Thompson. We had a bit of a knees up. I put my rods out, though. I wanted the rods out. And I think it's one of my skills is that, if you want to call it that, I adjust everything to the way that I'm fishing or where I'm fishing. And I didn't really want all my rods on top of the plateau, so I wanted them in deeper water. But all I could find was 4 foot of siltweed everywhere or Canadian weed. Just couldn't find anything. So 2 of those rods, one of the rods, I just stuck it with a 4 foot. It was a 20-pound snake bot, I think we were using then, with an 18mm pop-up on it. So it just, I thought, and I PVA'd a couple of pop-ups on it so that it would hold it above the weed as much as possible. When they come off, it would just be sat there.
On top. What sort of rig? A hinge rig?
No, just no knot. I mean, I don't do anything other than that, really. I'm not a very technical angler, but just a no-knotted affair. And 5 o'clock in the morning, that rod was rattled off. And I played and landed with the help of Dale Smith because it got all weeded up in the margin. And bless his soul too. I mean, he's passed on. Bless him. We've lost some wonderful people. He helped me sort of get out of the weed with the landing net pole and everything, and it was a long one, 28-12. Another very famous fish that survived all the pressure it was given when it lived in Longfield and the pressure it was getting in Horton. I mean, every swim was taken every day. It was just an unbelievable place to be, and when Kev said that to me, there's probably only 16 other 40-pounders in the country. It comes into perspective. And when you think some lakes have probably got double that number of 40s in now, and it almost takes it away from them, doesn't it? Awful thing to say, but it can't help feeling that way. And you just wish there weren't so many of them, and people would... I hear a lot of people now, I'm going to go, Lynn, I could get a couple of 40s in a day. And, please, you're not going to enjoy it as much as I did. And I always think that's all I can think is how much people are going to enjoy it and not just simply do it for being patted on the back for the things that you catch. But at the end of the day, that's what fishing is, isn't it? It's an individual pursuit, and I think it should be always treated that way. But that makes me a boring old twit, doesn't it, really?
No, I think it's different. As you say, you can only be a product of your time, can't you?
Yeah.
I think there is that aspect where sort of goalposts shift, where there was 16, let's say 40-pounders. Now there might be only sort of 10 60-pounders or even, do you know what I mean? So there is that aspect. Yeah. But I think you, as you say, ultimately you're a product of your time, and that's what you grew up with, and you put your bread and butter at the time. So it's completely fair to have that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was as a consequence of what happened at Horton, I mean, obviously all those big fish died. Well, practically all of them. A few of them did survive, which gave me something to aim for in the future. But what I wanted before I went back to Horton after those fish deaths was, well, one, I wanted to go to Raysbury, desperately wanted to go to Raysbury, which was... people say, that's like the Everest of carp fishing. Well, yes, it was. Yeah. There was never, and there will never be, I don't think, a harder environment from which to catch carp, which I'll come to in a minute. But they all died in Horton, and they put some stockies in there from Mark Simmons. It was a time when a lot of foreign fish were available for people, and the leadership of CMEX decided that they wanted to put Mark Simmons fishing there, so I doffed my cap to him for doing so, and but I didn't want to go and catch them necessarily. I let them settle in and whatever, and then I hoped I'd get back a few years later. Well, I got a gold card a little while after that for the advertising that I'd done for CMEX, so I could fish any water. Went over to Raysbury. Now, different ball game altogether. Yeah. 15 carp, known carp. Problem there might have been 20. In a lake of 125 acres, and it was almost split in half as well. You didn't know which lake they'd be in, the 20-yard gap between the two that they could swim through, and I did see them swim through it. Did you? On the odd occasion, yeah.
I fish it now, the south and the north, and even now the depth variation within that water, it's not like it's 4 foot deep everywhere, and you can... The prospect of that, I think about it all the time when I'm on there. I think about it and think, 15 carp, all this joined together.
But even though, I mean, I have to say, it's not the sort of place that I want to go and fish. There's just too many carp in it. Yeah. But
that's why I fish it, mate.
Bless you. There's just I fished it before. So I've got those memories of before, you know, and I don't know that I want to go there. No. I have done. I fished it when they took it over.
Yeah.
I did a little bit of promotional stuff for them, and I caught a few fish out there. But all I could think about was how it was. And 3 weeks into my ticket, I went down there again. I'm still in the army, still poorly. I was in Sunnymead's Corner one day, and I watched Mary for probably 2-3 hours from a tree, watching what she was doing, and I even got her taking mixers at one point. Yeah, unbelievable thing to happen. Ooh. And a seagull eventually, in the sort of the third or fourth gap I was doing it from, up the road bank there, a seagull came down, took one right off her nose, and she just spooked and went out in the lake. But I went and sulked in the tree and sat in the bough of this tree for ages, and I watched them doing a figure of 8 around the Cigar Island and the Little Dot Island, and it took them a while to go round. But so I must have been up there till about 5 o'clock in the evening. I went back, got in my little boat like you could in the day, and I went out round the Little Dot Island, couldn't find anything of significance, so the sort of clearest spot in the weed, I just freighted it up with a load of boilie and a load of particles. Went back, and I'm not going to mention the alarms I was using, but those alarms actually live in the bottom of Wraysbury South Lake now, with the stainless steel, but no battery in them. They got thrown over the side of my boat, and I would never. Yes, I bought my first set of Fox alarms after that. And they were good. Anyway, they squealed some unearthly sound at about 6 o'clock in the morning, and my first carp from Raysbury was the one. I didn't want to dream of Mary. Yes, it's always going to be your ultimate goal, but Malins was the fish that I wanted to catch. He was such a real old warrior, and I played him for a good old while, and there's so much weed. He was such a long way out, and eventually he rolled, and there he was in the bottom of my net. And Phil Thompson came round, Phil Jackson and Dell came round, and the three of us just looking at it in the landing there and thinking, you are one of 15 fish that live in 125 acres of water. Such an amazing feeling. You know?
I can't imagine a bite on there at 6 in the morning with that stock, mate. That's like hairs on the back of my neck now, let alone if I'm playing it. Yeah. I'd be in absolute pieces.
Yeah, it is like that. I was having a few sort of troubles personally of my own at the time, and my fishing was like taking a bit of a backseat to everything, and I tried to keep the momentum going, but I couldn't. But the following year, I did a caught measles, which Malins was 38.5 pound. I caught measles at 28, but measles is probably as famous as any other fish that of the original stock from there. And I caught him from right out the edge, right in the back of Bryant's Bay, and next door to, so I won't mention their names, but they're wonderful carp hangers who've caught more big fish than anybody could ever imagine, but they just don't want their names mentioned in public, and I've always appreciated that. You know, they do it their own way, and I had them for company when I caught it, and it was lovely. It was just a wonderful place, and if I could catch out of there, I always sort of left. When I left it alone, I didn't fish. I fished it for over a period of a couple of years, and then it got shut down for some strange reason. It was a national thing, wasn't it? I forget what it was all about. Oh God, what was it all about? It got closed down in '98. Anyway, we all got taken off the water and everything, and I never went back again, unfortunately. And then obviously things have happened since. Yeah. But the only way that lake and that business can support itself is by having carp in it. It's like the old man syndrome, isn't it? I tend to think, I don't want to say what I think nowadays because people think you're an old moany old git, but there's so many carp, and carp used to be the most difficult fish to catch. Yeah, that was the whole thrill of it. And unfortunately, because of their popularity, and I don't blame anybody or anything that's been done, they've, in some instances, the easiest. And it sort of grinds me down a little bit sometimes, but it serves a purpose, a wonderful purpose. Yeah, I live in an area with some young lads, you know, and you I'm not saying none of them were turning out to be horrible people or anything, but they had their issues with things, and they used to knock on my door and talk about fishing and could they help, because they knew Lynn was ill, and they were just, you know, lovely people. And I don't really want to mention their names now, because but there's half a dozen of them, and they've become good people because of carp fishing, because it gave them something to focus, to take their, you know, because it's a difficult society to live in. Yeah, there's a lot of kids that all they see is that all day long, playing on the phone or on a iPad. I don't even know what half these things are called anymore. I mean, I am a triceratops. I think I really do. I am the biggest dinosaur. I can't get into it.
I love the way you send me text that says I'm a dinosaur, and at the end of it, you've managed to find the emoji button for dinosaur. Every time it's like, he's not that much of a dinosaur. He's found that emoji.
I try, but I get. Is the word invigorated? Is it excited? I don't know. Yeah. I mean, Tom Maker would be a huge example of that. I first met Tom down at Chillum Lake with his dad, Andy. Yeah. And I think I met Andy the first time to have words with him. There was a fishing there. It was the record. It was a charity do we were doing down there, and I'd caught this. It became known as Gillis fish. They all wanted it to be a 40-pounder. It was 39.5 or something. It didn't matter to me. It was a big old lump of carp, you know, and it was so excited. I had about 30 people on this tiny little point trying to get a look at it. And I'm sorry, I keep throwing.
No, you're cool, man.
Andy was one of them, and I had a good chat with him and his son Tom. Well, I think I was born to be a fisherman. Yeah. And I think you'll get some people who were born to build buildings or to, you know, make cameras or whatever.
Yeah, it's your God-given talent, isn't it?
He was born to be a carp angler. Yeah. You know, it's you know, Terry Earn's the same, isn't he? But it's in two completely different worlds they live. And Tom he's just unbelievable. But what I like about Tom, although he does fishing that I don't ever really want to do, he's excited by it. Yeah. But he's hopeless at showing his excitement when they're filming the bugger. He's trying to be like, I'm cool and I'm serious. I want him to show that there's a little bit of pee in his pants or something, because he does get genuinely excited by it. And I get as much of a kick out of him telling me some stories as I do of making my own. And that's like it with everybody. Yeah. You know, when somebody comes up to me, they want to tell me something, then it's brilliant. I love it. I love every second of it.
Raysbury, going back there, for you, is that, I'm guessing that is atypical in terms of very, very sort of fitted with your style of angling. You talked to me off camera about how you like to keep things real minimal, move around. A lot of the anglers at Horton, for example, weren't doing that. But Raysbury is that type of water where if you're sitting there in one swim, unless you've got an infinite amount of time, it's going to be pretty hard to bore them out. You need to be able to react, move, and go and see things.
The whole point of that kind of fishing... Oh, excuse me.
You're right, mate.
A bit funny. Yeah. It's that mobility thing, isn't it? And very often in the older days, and I have to keep saying it, you know, if you're on a big lake, the carp could be all at the other end. You have to find them, you know, and it's all kinds of crazy things you don't have to do nowadays. I mean, there's so many fish in some of these waters. It's harder not to catch one than it is, you know, to go in with a blank. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And Raysbury was mad, and you'd fly around all over the place until you were happy. I mean, I know that I lost Mary one day in the Dredger Bay, and it was awful. And I had her on, and I had to go out till she'd got entangled on the island and went out in my boat. And unbelievably, it was the lead core that went halfway through the lead core. The lead had gone and everything, you know what I mean? But Yeah, the leg core went, and there was a couple of other times I chased her around in the Douglas Bay and everything, and yeah, it was disappointing. It could be hugely disappointing at times, but when you caught one, it didn't matter how big it was or what it was called. It was a Wraysbury carp, and it makes me laugh today. There's that one in the King Fungus, they call it.
Yeah, King Fungus.
And I remember the the management back then, back in when was the fish death over there? Late 90s, wasn't it? Yeah, they put 6 fish in there that were just rotten to the core, and he was one of them. I caught him twice in a week from the Rocky Barge, and 26. 19 pound he was, an 18 pound.
Wow.
But yeah, it was amazing. But he's now, he's one of the big old fossils.
He's a big dog.
There. It's just sad to me. I don't want to go in there. I caught a Raysbury carp, and yeah, you did. And there's none of the originals left, unfortunately. But there was one that I named. I'm not normally a namer of fish. I know there's a few chili carp around the world somewhere, poor animal. But, they bless his heart to carry my name around with him. But, I was with Reg Bampton, the fourth member of the band, on Brian's Point one day, and I got a bite. We were around the corner in the bushes looking at something in the margins, and Rod screamed off, and £22 it was, and it was called. It wasn't called anything. Nobody knew it, and this is a exciting big water, low stocks can be. Got it on the bank, £22, a little over £22. Well, I wanted a photograph. It was a carp from Raysbury. There's a couple of people, that was a little one, wasn't it? And I'm what planet are you from? Kind of thing.
I've had a bite, mate.
I've had a bite, and Reg did the photographs. And we put it back, and I was in up in Sunnymead's Corner, right at the other end of Raysbury, 3/4 of a mile away up the other end, one day looking in the margins, just creeping along the bank, and I bumped into a kind of old guy. He had a little sort of monk's hair, doing a bald head, and my gear was up in a swim called the Lawns, and he followed me back up there, and it's sort of a little light bulb went on in my head. I said, "You're Kenny Odder, aren't you?" And Kenny and Pete they found Raysbury. They caught it. Anyway, through Pete and through Pete Springate, Sir Peter, I found out it was a fish, the 22-pounder I had, and its only other capture was by Pete Springate, and it weighed about 17 pound, and that was in 16 years before I caught it. It hadn't seen the bank since then. Amazing, isn't it? It's just incredible. And if it weighed 6 pound, it still wouldn't matter. It's the irony.
Yes, the significance.
How significant that fish is, and it was quite amazing. And I love things like that. It's difficult to explain to people when it's almost become a bit of a numbers game, hasn't it? And it's some of the small fish. So one of the most we'll never get to talk about it unless I mention it now. Was in a lake in Northampton, 45 acres. The odd person that had a go, it had done a couple of carp. They reckon there were 6 or 7 in there. And a friend of mine, a guy Mark Denton from One Para. I've known him for since the 80s. He lives up that neck of the woods, right. And he was telling me, I said, we'll have a go. And I was boating about in it in a little dinghy for a couple of weeks. I was fishing another lake, an estate lake further up the road, and I found a couple. And I found one that was quite a good fish. I found 2 commons in another place and a couple of little ones swimming about. And I did a night, my first night on there. I caught one of the commons. Wow. And then the next time I went, one of the little commons. Next time I went up, I had a 29-12 mirror. And it had never been caught before. And it looked like a coelacanth. It was so old, and I had it in the net, and I almost didn't want to take it out of the water. It looked so old. I rolled it on its side, these big, thick scales sticking, and it just looked like a dinosaur. People would say, you could have called it a 30. I've had a few times. No, it wasn't. It was 29 pounds and 12 ounces. But it was an old fish, and it is what it is. It was one of maybe 6 or 7 fish in 45 acres of water, and
that is special.
Yeah, very special. But people don't see it that way today, you know, and that's some of the shine that's gone from carp fishing. I think is that, you know, the likes of Peter Springate, what Laney did in his early years, and those kind of people are amazing. You look at Richie McDonald, you know, what he did. I mean, he had to sacrifice practically all of his life to do what he did, but it was amazing what he caught, and
that's the reason we're here today, pretty much. Well, I'm here
absolutely,
today anyway,
and people lose sight of that. The one thing I get really upset about is the history of it all. Yes, it's wonderful that somebody's caught 29 40s this year out of so and so, and somebody's caught 35 from so and so, and this, that, and the other. But it wouldn't happen if it wasn't for the will, the determination, and the sacrifices that a few people made. I mean, Richie, bless his heart, probably isn't everybody's cup of tea, but, you know, but that's like his on not, you know. But he what he did was shaped the angling that we do today definitely. In such a significant way. The same as Peter Springate. Remember that Yovney brace?
Yeah, that's iconic, mate.
It's such an iconic photograph. I mean, for me, but most people have never seen it.
Maybe.
That's the problem. I always like to remember where things have come from, just as much as where it's going to go, and it's always the past that shapes your future. And I think you keep a grip of that, and then I just don't want carp to lose their mythical kind of status. You know,
mystique they had, too. Right?
Yeah, it's. But you need places. I mean, it's very, you know, you got people who want to go, how do I learn to catch carp? Well, you learn to catch carp by catching carp. And the best way to do that is go somewhere where you'll get a bite. And then you can adjust things from there and find out that you don't need to use the next version of a stiff link pop-up, because all it is a stiff link pop-up. It isn't called anything else, but they do, because they use half an inch more shrink tube or a little bit of tube in it. It has to be called my rig is absolutely perfect rig, and, you know, unbelievable the amount of rubbish that gets talked about rigs. It defies belief, absolutely. And everything I've ever caught has been on the most simple of stuff, and the joy of carp fishing for me, now I have the confidence in everything that I do, is to soak up the environment and chase the fish around that I want to catch. And to me, that's the key. Don't go chasing rigs around. You know, that is just not the one. That'll cost you a fortune. I shouldn't probably be saying that. Sat in Crowthorne angling where you want people to come in and keep your business alive.
If you do want to spend a fortune, come to Crowthorne.
Yeah. We'll keep plugging the shops. I shouldn't say that, but it is true. You know, people spoil the enjoyment by following trends.
We're on rigs. I know a lot of you've talked in Carpology and various other publications about your stance. For me, when I think of you and rigs, I think of two. I think of the classic PVA bag, dumbbell boilie, sort of blowback style rig, and I think of as you said, a hinge. They're the two. Yeah, you don't really deviate.
Yeah. No, not at all. And I've got told carp do this, carp do that. And you can read anything you want into any situation. Yeah, and that's what's happened. People say, "Oh, it was playing. It was so obvious it could see it." Now, I'm not going to give any names away in anything I say, especially if it's a bit demeaning, but I was chatting to a guy on a very big famous lake one day. This is back in about 1988, 89, who was very, very, more so than anybody we've ever met, versed in carp and what they are. And according to him, a carp cannot see somewhere between 8 and 10 inches directly in front of its face.
Right.
Okay? That is a physical fact. That changed when he became involved in fishing and got a deal, because he needed to make carp harder to catch. And, they come up to the rig and they go, "Oh, it's looking at it." No, it isn't, because it can't see it. Do you know what I mean? And it's, you know, their eyes aren't there for food. Their eyes are built into them for defence, to the side and upwards. You know, that's where it's defence. It's not feeding. Their feeding is from their mouth, and it's a very, very advanced system, filtration-wise. And I think I used to fish with a guy, I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning his name, Charlie Daly. He used to work for ICI, MAF, he used to work for, I mean, he was high up in it.
Big.
And a very, very, I mean, he had more brains than you could ever imagine. I used to sit there, he used to talk, and I'd be like, dribbling down my chin. But, carp have got 54 receptors in their mouth. That not like we've got 5, haven't we? Sweet, bitter, and on our tongue. They got 54. And I remember one day he designed a bait himself and made it himself that would stimulate 52 of those 54 receptors. And he wondered and asked me, why haven't I caught? Why don't I catch carp on it? And I said to Charlotte, can you imagine walking in a room and you can smell every smell in the world all at the same time? You'd be sick as a pig, wouldn't you?
Yeah, all over
You'd be throwing up everywhere. And he just couldn't understand. But very, very intelligent man. But he told me more than I'll ever want to know about carp and all the rest of it. But they were born to feed off the bottom, to suck and blow mud or weed to get the food off of it. That's what its filtration system does. And I think people think a carp think about that. No, they don't. It's an instinctive thing. You know, it's so, the things they do are so unthought of. Yeah. But it's people's interpretation when they film it or see it from a tree. Well, they must be intelligent because it didn't take my bait. Well, that can happen. I mean, I've seen fish pickings blow my hook, but it probably happens 100 times when you're fishing over a load of bait and you know you got fish there, and then one of them will make a mistake and it will come out a little bit wrong, wallop, your buzzer goes, and you just think you've won the World Cup. It's lovely. That'll do for me. I don't want it to be any more complicated than that. But their mouth is designed to get rid of the stuff they don't want to eat. Your hook is one of those things, and they don't know what a hook is. No. Everybody's like, they know what that is, and he's looking at it. He's not going, hey, big bollocks, this has got a hook attached to it, mate. I don't want to touch that, you know. And they ain't like that. They can't communicate on that level. And, you can jump out the water and make a row above it. I've seen that happen, and they all bugger off. I've seen that happen a few times. But, not the little nitty-gritty things people talk about. Rigs. I've nearly went to sleep when you said it because I just find it the most hideously boring subject on the face of this planet. The most important thing ever in carp fishing, ever, is to put that hook bait in the right place. And the rest of it just follows quite naturally. As long as you got a sharp hook, that thing's, and I don't sharpen my hooks, by the way. I will put my fish down with a big foot there. It doesn't need, I'll use them out of the packet, but it needs to be in the right place. Then you'll get a bite.
Nice. I like the way you've ended that. Nice, and it finalised. No, I like it, mate. It's very
I'm sorry.
Dave Chilly. One iconic place that you've got to talk to me about your time on is Yateley and the Car Park Lake. How did you find yourself on there?
After Horton and after Raysbury, I just felt I wanted to, I wanted to fish the hardest places. That's the only way I can sort of look at it. I wanted to fish it where it was, the people reckoned it was almost impossible to get a bite. There were so many sort of mythical rumours about places like that back then, and the Car Park Lake was about as damn near to that as you can get, and it was such a ridiculously hard lake. And I knew a few people on there through just some of the places I'd fished, namely through the Army Lake, where a few of them would go there in the winter for their fishing. So I got to know a few people, and I was given the Car Park Lake. Well, I gave the Car Park Lake ticket to myself as a welcome to Civvy Street. Really, that's how I wanted my fishing to be when I got out of the army. I didn't want to go fish easy places and get a load of bites. I wanted it to be that way. And I was so excited by it. It's so hard, I think, for people to imagine nowadays. You're fishing a lake where most of the fish are over 40 pounds, but there's only 9 fish in there. A load of tench, load of bream. It was incredibly difficult fishing. I think in the main to get the carp feeding together. When you read some of the books that have been written about it, the observations of the writer before they caught that fish, fish started showing, you knew there were fish in the area. I read one story about Alder when they went out in a boat to get one of the fish out the weed, they could see where all the weed beds have been pushed back. That's when you've got them all feeding. That's when you're going to get a bite. That's when carp's defences fall down, is when they're competing for their food. But that was the trick on the Car Park Lake. Now, I never, in the captures I got, and it's going to sound like I caught a lot of carp from there, I didn't. But the thing it did was eased me so wonderfully into Civvy Street, so wonderfully into the carp fishing that I wanted to do. Remember, I have to keep saying it, and she won't like me saying it, but Lynn was so ill. Yeah. All this time, it's gone on, and it's still that way to this day. So it's always something I've got to have in mind, and I've probably taken, in all honesty, my fishing too far at times when her health has been an issue, and it's things that I regret. And I think I did it on the car park for a while as well. But anyway, I got this ticket, and talking to people there was different in every way than turning up at a lake in today's environment. They were such driven people. There was young Dave Ball there. That's all he wanted. There was nothing else in his life. I found it a little sad. I do, and there was guys there, 40-year-old guys, and I won't name them. They didn't know where Heathrow Airport was in relation to where Yateley was. They'd never been out of the 20-mile radius of Yateley. All they'd done is fish there. And it was amazing how limited a lot of people's experience of life was. And life to me is about experiencing as much of it as you can, while you can. Anyway, they were interesting people. And again, I mentioned two of them, John Coxhead, Steve Pagalatas, Dave Ball was another one. Dave sort of, he was there every day of the week. You could do 7 days a week. I suppose you're going to catch one like that. The first session I did there for 9 days.
9 days.
And it was the longest session I'd ever done. Really knocked the counter over. That'll be good. And it was an experience that made me never want to fish for that length of time ever again. I found it so boring. It was just not right. So I thought, well, I'd just go there. If you can find something, then that's cool. If you can, have a walk around, take some notes, and go home. And I went down one day, stood in the back of the No Carp Bay. Is it No Carp Bay? I think I can't remember. God, that's how bad my memory is. In the little bay there, and this John Cox had a load of fish out of there, and nobody thought they'd go back in there. So I was the only one who was really looking at that area, and I saw what the fish were doing in the mouth of the bay and where they sort of in the evening sort of just mellow away into the depths, and you'd see a little bit of evidence of feeding, maybe the odd bubble where they're cruising through the weed. But I wanted to concentrate on that. I thought, I'm just going to do overnighters. I'm going to bait spots and I'll do overnighters. So I stood on a stump one day for about 8 hours looking over this bay. And I saw exactly where they were going in near to the bank. And that evening I walked a hook bait. This is the 22nd of June 2000. I've been Mr. Chillcott for 22 days. And I hadn't caught a carp yet, by the way. No, I wanted the first carp I caught was Mr. Chillcott to be a special carp. And when leading up to the carp, I went through all of them. All the fish I could catch out. There weren't many. I've only had 9 choices, And Heather was that ultimate one again that I thought I'm not going to think about. And I thought about single scale, probably most of all. But the biggest character for me was the Dustbin. Yeah. And I think everybody loved it. I remember Gaz Farron writing about his time on there when he caught the Dustbin one day, and how you could tell through it. Gaz is one of those guys, you can tell how he feels through his writing. He's capable of relaying that, and he loved it. Anyway, I put this rod and I put the line. It all went through the pads, all on the bottom in about 3 foot of water, and I put it around a stick. at the top of the marginal drop off, and the bait went down at the bottom. And I put a couple of handfuls of boilies. There was a little bit of emp. I was using the Assassinate then, I think it was called. Yeah. It never took off. I don't know why. I caught loads of fish on it. Yeah, looped the line around there, walked it back, and I put another rod up to my right, very similarly. I don't know, it was about 6 o'clock in the morning. I've got no bobbins on. There's only one way that fish is going to go, and that's into the deep water and away from me. And so there's no need in putting bobbins on. And the rod was just howling. And it's just such a weedy place. It was like weed bed to weed bed. And I think at the end there was so much weed on it. When it covers their eyes, they go all quiet and they come out on the surface. I didn't know what it was. It was just like a big ball of weed to me, and scooped it up. And there was the Dustbin laying in the bottom of my landing net, and I was just, oh my God. It was like, I don't know how to describe it, because it's not something that a lot of people would understand nowadays. And I don't mean that as an old grumpy gits on a comment, but it's not. No. It's 1 out of 9 carp in a lake, and it's hard to take in. And I'd actually caught one, on my simple little no-knot rigs. Again, I think I was using the old snake bite, the original snake bite when it came out. Just no-knotted. A long hair as I do. I had these big old slide running leads on that seemed to work a treat in the margins for some reason, but it was a big lead, 5 ounces of it. I got him in the net, and everybody on the lake, and I mean everybody, reeled in and came round to do the photographs. It was such a rare thing to get a fish on the bank.
Yeah,
everybody wants to see it, and it was such a thing. And at the end of the day, and this is, we're talking about me being a dinosaur and some sort of old maggot. This is how bad it gets, because that capture was just about to last a month. Now, when you think about it nowadays, you take your photograph. And you think, that's the nuts. I'll stick it on Facebook. You put it on that. That's it. Gone. Then you got to try and catch the next one. Do the same thing. Yeah. It's gone, hasn't it? That moment is, yes, you got it in the net and you're excited and you're getting your photographs taken. Take it. You can see the fish straight away on your phone.
Yeah, it's done.
And gone. And you put it on Facebook, get the pats on the back, and then you're looking for the next one. Well, this fish, they all came round. I was left with 6 canisters of slide film in my swim, and I'm having a cup of tea on my own. I'm just I was just collapsing my Evo, and I'm just amazed that I've caught one out of the car park. It was like winning the World Cup to me. That day I took them to the developers, and it took a week to get them done. Okay, so I've put that in. I went home. I think England beat Spain, in a World Cup qualifier after extra time on penalties, I think it was. I can't really remember. I'm not a great football fan, if I to admit something like that. But anyway, and I went back to the lake to do another overnighter, and unbelievably nobody had moved into that area of the lake. So I sort of sat on this stump again looking, and I saw a couple of fish in the mouth of the bay just cruising around. I thought, I'll just set up exactly as I did before, and I did exactly the same thing. A couple of handfuls of 15mm boilies, a couple of handfuls of emp, and some chopped boilies, and did the same on the other spot. And I was just sort of lying there under the stars that night and thinking, I've caught one. That's all I could think about. I caught one. I wasn't thinking about catching another one. And roughly the same time, the other rod went off the right-hand rod. Now, you hear stories of people catching carp. Carp can't fight that hard. Yeah. I honestly believe the bloke who was fishing the curly, which was directly opposite me, about 300 yards across the lake, must have seen that fish roll in his margin. It went on and on and on and on. I thought, this is a proper beast. You know what I mean? There was no little shaking of the head, which smaller carp tend to do. It's just, I'm off. Yeah. And I had to work it all the way through, and I way down the water. It was up to me man tackle in the water, playing it and just praying it would stay on. And all the time, I could just feel all the time. It never stopped. And I was just shaking. I'm sure the ripples that were coming out with my knees knocking together, and it just didn't want to get near this sound or whatever. And young Dave Ball, was up behind me and said, "You all right? I said, "Oh, I think so." I'm shaking and shaking. Anyway, I got it into the net after. It was just a mammoth fight. It must have gone on for sort of 20-odd minutes. And it didn't really get stuck in the weed. It got stuck in weed, which I quickly got moving again, but it just kept on powering off. It was unbelievable. I peeled back the from the weed just to look in the water, and there was single scale, which was my target fish from there. And I just didn't know what to say and think. And Dave was so good; he helped me out with doing everything, and we got it weighed, and he reckoned it was 44 pound, but I said it's 43.12 will do me nicely. I don't want to go over the top and all silly things like that. Anyway, again, everybody reeled in. They all came around, did the photographs. I got some wonderful footage of it, proper oldie stuff as well. You can't really, it's not sharp like today's filming, is it? A bit like me, a bit blurred around the edges, but yeah, it was incredible. An incredible moment. And as much as I stayed there that season and did a little bit the following season, I lost a fish out of Curly later on that year, but I never caught another fish out of that lake. I only caught those 2 fish, but I think those 2 fish were the best welcome I could have ever had in the Civvy Street. As you know, my first time, I called me Mr. Chillcott. Yeah. I caught 2 40-pounders as a civilian. You know, 2 of the most famous fish that ever swam. And again, they're fish I look at now today and think people have got so much to thank you for being what you were. You know, they've passed on. I think Yateley Angling got pictures of them all around their wall. I think they're still there, which is wonderful, because I think they need to be in people's minds and the way they shape things. I mean, you look at the anglers that have gone through that lake. I mean, yeah, it's just amazing. I won't even start a list. We'll be here to the middle of next week. But there's some incredible people, and they were incredible lakes. And at that time, I just felt I needed to move on. Right. There was the eye up at Sonning that became known, and I know Laney and Jenkins were up there after it. I went up there with them, and unbelievably, when there was only 100 fish, they reckoned, in 435 acres of water, I wasn't prepared to fish the out of bounds bank, which a lot of it was. I stayed on which was the windward bank, and I always thought on unpressured waters, if you fish on the windward bank, that's where the carp will be. And I caught 11 fish in 5 nights out of there. Did you? Yeah, it was unbelievable. The biggest was a 33-pound common, but it was, again, I'd achieved something. In that size of water. It didn't matter about me catching the eye. Yeah. It didn't matter about anything, and I never fished there again. And I moved on again and again, and I did it on several other places. As long as I could catch a fish from there, I think I'd done enough. And I didn't want to stay looking at the same set of trees, talking to the same people, doing the same thing day after day. And I don't do day after day, interestingly. I thought I could call myself a full-time carp angler, but 2 nights a week's enough for me. Yeah, I'll stay a third night if I think I'm like banging with a chance. But I think for 48 hours, I am on fire. Yeah. Everything about me is on fire. And when I get to the 3rd day, it's like maybe you know, and I like my 2-day regime, and I get the best out of it. And there are a few guys, people don't think so, they will always believe that I fish every day of the week, and again, I could think of nothing more boring. One of the joys of fishing to me is going fishing. Yeah, of course. I don't want to be there all the time. I couldn't think of anything more boring. No, when that alarm clock goes off, and you know, I like to make myself a little cup of tea, which I fill up with half cold water so I can drink it really quickly. And I might go into the loo and sit on the can and drink it. But I'm just sat there thinking, I've got to get going, you know. And I'm off to the lake, and I might pull out the end of my road at 20 miles an hour and get on the main road and doing about 30, 40. By the time I get on any motorways or dual carriages, I'm doing 100 miles an hour with the air on fire. I want to get there. I want to do it. So, and that's how my carp fishing went on. I mean, we've talked about Horton, and we've talked about Yateley, and the Car Park Lake. Yeah, incredible places that I just hope and pray never disappear into the mist of time. And again, it's not only the fishermen that went there and wrote about it, people like Malin and that. It's, I mean, Rob, you know, he's written some wonderful stories about it all, and Terry. It's about the fish themselves, and that, they seem to be the commodity that gets forgotten about. Yeah, and in a great deal, with a massive part of why fishing is the way it is today, and they should always be held up in high regard, along with the guys that fish for them, because I think we were all a bit mental at the time. We're all mental, mate, aren't we? Let's face it, we talked about that earlier too. Those fish, those Yateley fish, you said there, those 2 captures,
How did you catch them, or why did you catch them? Because as you said, there's 9 fish, you're seeing them. What specifically about the spots, the baiting situation, what do you think led to their actual capture? Because it was so hard, so iconic, so sort of, as you say, steeped in mystery, but so rock hardly difficult to catch a fish.
I've always said it ain't about what you tie on the end of your line.
Yeah.
Or how you've grand-angled your Fungerburger rig or your whatever you want to call the bloody thing. It's got absolutely nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
Nothing at all. It's to do, as long as you've got a sharp hook and something they want to eat, it's about putting it in the right place. And it's something that seems to be... again, it makes you sound old, being lost over the course of time, where you can go to a lake and cast 60 to 80 yards or whatever it is. You pile in a load of corn and put 3 up baits on it and catch fish. Well, that, to me personally, and fair play to anybody that does it, I can't think of anything more boring. And the way that I've caught a great deal of most of the bigger fish that I've caught is because I use my eyesight and respond to what the fish are doing. Jack would be a good example.
Yeah,
they were all
definitely
on the surface on that plateau out in front of you. A bait there was going to be a winner. I couldn't surface fish; it was too far, so it had to be it wasn't called a zig rig then either, was it? And zig rigs were used a long time before they became popular and called zig rigs. But anyway,
off the lead,
off the lead. That's off the lead pop up. Yeah, exactly that.
What was that spot, though? That's what I'm interested in, because that spot, you said you'd watch them going in.
Well, it's where they disappeared from sight.
Right.
As they came, there was a big, massive wee bed on the surface in the mouth of the bay, and they'd come out left or right of it, and they'd go into there, and they'd disappear. Then all of a sudden, they'd appear somewhere else in that margin, and then go down a bit further and disappear. So they, first of all, became the spots. The areas, if you like. The spots themselves, I found with the lead. I mean, the greatest bit of community, I don't care about it. I'd never use one of these GPS thingies or anything. The greatest communication you will ever have with the bottom of a lake is your line and your lead. And if it's braid, the communication is impounded. It just gets better and better. And it's what people tend not to do. They think, again, you can go and chuck it out 60 to 80 yards, chuck a load of stuff over the top, free on the spot, and you catch loads. It ain't like that. It's finding the right spot. And we were talking about Raysbury and the different depths there earlier on, before we started all this, really. And it was an amazing place. And the way you found out about it, you could go out in a boat, of course, but I found the best way to tell me about the bottom of the lake and the depths was the marker float. And there's such an unused bit of kit nowadays. You rarely see it. It's a bloke casting out and it goes donk. Yeah, that'll do for me. 3 rods on it. I'm asleep by the time he's got to that point. It's that communication, the rattle of the gravel, that just how much it takes to pull that lead out of the silt, or how little time it takes, or hardly at all, but it's still smooth, reeling in things like clay on your lead. I mean, that's Christmas. If you found a bit of lead in a predominantly gravel and silty lake, you have found the spot. And those are the sort of things I'm looking for. It's very difficult to teach people watercraft.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think it's something, people say, it's something that people naturally do. I don't think that's quite the case. I think you've got to learn to do it. But that is the problem. It seems that all you got to do is walk into a tackle shop, buy all the gear, and you'll go and catch a carp. You're ready to rock and roll. Well, you are. You can go to some places and catch carp, but if you want to push yourself, push the envelope, take on bigger challenges, then you need to know more about the water that you're fishing, and that tells you everything. Those spots on the Car Park Lake were where the fish disappeared.
Gravel,
with the lead.
Clear areas, or were you fishing?
They were just, it was very weedy.
Yeah.
And it was the spot that I pulled the least amount of weed from.
Right.
Yeah, and the 2 spots had a little bit of siltweed in them. That was all that came back on the hook or on the weed. And I've got the baited hook link in the top of my waders there. All I do is take that off, put it on, pull the quick the anti-tangle sleeve up and plop it back on the spot with a handful of bait and then walk back. And I know, one, I know my presentation is good, and 2, I know it's an area the fish are visiting. But more than that, a lot of people would be looking for total clarity. I would rather have a hook bait presented half decently in an area that the fish feed naturally than perfectly in an area where they don't. And that is it's something that gets lost eyesight. Unfortunately, I operate with only one eye now. I'm blind in this eye completely. But it's I still wonder, this poor little fella around here is probably getting knackered because he's
done some mileage. Yeah,
he's done some miles now. But it's my eyes that tell me everything I want to know, and half the joy of it. Fish is a very secretly, they're very quiet out of the way lake down in Essex, and they are, sometimes they'll show. I don't fish there anymore, but it was all the fish in there was just those subtle little signs that you saw, subtle little things. They did so much subsurface roll in there, and you're looking for that little flat spot. You get that little ripple on the water where you don't really going to see anything. There's still a lot to find if you're prepared to look. And all the fish, I mean, after I got in a bit of stick with my head, I went back up. This is the last time I'll probably fish up there. And I had some 340s before Christmas. I got ill all over again, unfortunately, then. But that was all done through eyesight. And one of them was a recatch, and I thought, that's the end of my time now.
Yeah.
I don't want to catch 40s all the time that I've caught before. You're stealing other people's dreams, aren't you? And that's the last thing I want to do.
Yeah. From that chapter, Yateley, what I wanted to talk about is your sort of involvement, if you like, within the industry, how that sort of morphed into play. Because obviously you're civvy street, you're fishing, you're enjoying that type of fishing with the people around you, etc. You've sort of developed a good network. How did that then lead into probably a preface as to what is now?
I think that the biggest thing to say about me and getting into civvy street and getting my involvement with it all was I was in the army. And my whole ethos revolved around the army, the way I thought about life and the way I think it ought to be run. Whatever you want to do, it had to be run in a certain way for me. And the biggest and most important point for me was loyalty. Because that is what, in the army, was everything. Everything was about that. If you were loyal to each other, you had the art for it, and you'd get on and do anything. And I wanted that to carry on in civvy street. I didn't want to become, let's say, a jumper from company to company. I was looking to throw an anchor and stay somewhere and be part of something that I wanted to be part of. Not paid for necessarily, but something that I could be happy with. And I'm not going to name any names because it isn't fair, but I did, the first time I got paid for any of it, I was going to go out and do a article with Colin Davidson down on a lake in the New Forest. I forget what it was called. It was quite a hard lake that I did the night on. Then we went up to the easy lake to try and get a bite for an article in the Anglers Mail.
Yeah.
Now, this company, bless their hearts, promised me so much money for this, so much, a mention was 25 quid, a picture of the product was 25 quid, a front cover was, I think, 150 quid they said I'd get. There was lots of little prices for everything. Well, I went off. Colin arrived in the morning. We popped up. I caught a couple, and there was PVA products. There was hooks. There was hook links. There was leads. There was all sorts. Because about 3 pages in the Anglers Mail, which again had a price for it as well. The pages you got, and unbelievably, he put me on the front cover of the Anglers Mail as well. Well, I think I got $2,500. That was my first payment they ever paid to me. I never signed a contract with them. I never wanted to sign a contract. This was done,
what year is this, mate? Give me a year.
When are we? 2001.
Yeah, 2000.
And I wore their little hats and all that, and they didn't like it, paying that much money.
Yeah. And
it was very obvious I'd sussed out what to do. And with Colin there, we were chuckling about an awful lot of things. Colin was a wonderful guy. You never hear of him nowadays.
Is it Nash?
Is he a
He's
Nash?
a Nash, mate.
He's such a nice bloke. I get on so well with him. And he's, again, lots of things I've done in fishing, not because of, but were helped by Colin talking to him and being a mate of his. You must say hello to him for me, because he a lovely guy. There was a lot of things Colin did for me. But yeah, we giggled about it, and he said, well, we can have a photograph. What's that? That's 50 quid just taking a photograph in it. I'm like, yeah, that'd be cool. And we were giggling, totting it up as we went. Well, they never asked me to do it again. So that was the end of that, which I didn't care about. I hadn't signed anything. It didn't matter to me. And, I got my pension from the army. I got a little bit of income from other stuff I was doing. And then I'd known Adam Penham for a long time, as I caught that Popeye at a manor in 98, that was. And I met Adam on the bank. He was doing a feature with Colin, with Jim Foster for Total Carp. And it was Total Carp, Jim, that asked me to write. Mate, wasn't called that then, was it? It was called, I can't remember what it was called. Total Carp used to be called something else. Anyway, it was in that mag, and he asked me to write for him. That was the first article for a magazine I ever wrote. Right. And Colin, Jim was quite amazed at how I wrote it as well. Didn't need any changing, and that sort of stood me in good stead. But I got to know Adam, and obviously Adam was working with ESP, and he got me some cheap gear, he gave me some free stuff now and again. I'd get some hooks, and I wore their cap for a while. No, I wasn't getting paid for any of it. Yeah. It didn't matter to me. And then I came to a point where it seemed to be the right thing to do. And I had a meeting with Peter Drennan, lovely man. Talked about it. They offered me quite a substantial amount of money, and another guy went up with me. I don't want to talk about him either. Not that a friend of mine, but I didn't want it.
Why?
And I drove home because I knew that I would be a mannequin in a shop window. They didn't want any input from me. They just wanted me to use tackle on the bank and write about it. Well, that ain't what I wanted. And I spoke to Kev Knight, who, he's probably guided me more than anybody on the planet, really. Yeah. Kev, he's just more than a friend, really. And he said, have a word with Cliff and just see what you can come up with, I said, do I want to? I don't. Fox was winning every prize on the planet, in the magazines, in the commercial world. It sounded like a good step. Well, I had to have a meeting with Max Cottis. And I got on with Max and we talked, and I said, look, I don't want to be a shop window. I don't want to be a mannequin. I want to help you. If you want to do things, then the SSC hook, when we made it, I think it's just called the curved hook now. Yeah. I drew that hook as a little design thing, a meeting, and that is the hook today. And it's such a massive selling product. That's just an inkling of the kind of things that you do as a proper consultant. A lot of people call themselves consultants, but they're not quite that. They just get given a bit of free tackle and call themselves consultants for some unknown reason. But and I took on a consultancy with Fox. The first deal that I signed for money, it was less than ESP had offered me. Yeah, but it was what I wanted to do. I fail to see how people can talk the way they do about products to the public who are going to pay for this, about products they know absolutely nothing about. If I know about it, there's products that Fox make now that I'm never going to promote because I don't know nothing about it. Yeah. Use it if you want. It's probably going to be good. We make such exceptionally good products that I say, use it, but I can't tell you anything about it, and I won't because I haven't used it. Yeah, it's wrong. The way that people behave, and do I use the word lie to people? Yeah, I do, and I think a lot of people are lied to in this industry, and they don't need to be. You've got people that have used copious amounts of people. They're getting a new set of a new T-shirt and sweatshirt to wear every couple of years, and then they say that's the best gear they've ever used. How do they know it is? Unless you've used it all. And then they changed companies again after they got fed up with that, or somebody. It's normally a few more dollars, isn't it? And I can't live. I couldn't live like that. You know, I have had some offers, and
I'll bet.
when we finished, I'll tell you one that will make your teeth curl too. Awful lots of money, awful lots of money, silly money to go places. But all I've ever wanted to do since 2002 is fish for fox, and and it's the greatest decision I ever made, and for reasons I won't go into now. It will always be the way that it is. And and the same with mainline. Exactly the same with mainline. I mean, it was Dave Lane obviously got me into that, and the first the big fish I caught on it was malins, and I went up to Manor in the winter and caught that Popeye on it, and caught the peanut fish. That was a really famous fish back in the day, on the mainline baits, and I've been there ever since, even longer than Fox. 1994 I started using mainline baits. I've never used anybody else's baits since, and I never will. And it's that loyalty, and Kev and Steve are truly, for reasons I could never go into, remarkable people. It's once I got to know what they were like, it was like my army friends. Yeah. With all of them. And Fox now are run, you got Sean McSpadden, Scott Day, Lewis Porter, Harry Charrington. We had a guy, I don't know how long he's been there now, 4 or 5 years, Brad Walker. There's others, Kieran. They're just unbelievable people. They're all fishermen. They all know what they're talking about. They've all done some absolute top quality fishing and caught fish that most people could only dream about, yet they turn it around and give it back to the guy who walks into shops like this. And to me, there's nothing better than that. I wanted to serve with the greatest soldiers in the world, and I did that. And I wanted to work with the greatest carp anglers I've ever known, and I do that. I'm not calling Kev Knight a great carp angler, by the way. I'm not going to blow smoke out of his bum right now, okay? But he makes a wonderful bait. He is just the most special bloke I've ever met. And, and I know now in my heart, because I've been told that it lasts forever. And that's what loyalty does. Yeah. And that's what people forget.
That's a key principle, isn't it? You can tell you're a principled man. We've talked about loads of stuff before, but definitely in practice, when you've been offered X and Y, that's the true test, and that is the case. Let's talk about a more modern chapter in terms of your angling. I'm going to go to Farriers, and this sort of feeds into some wormhole that we're going to go down, mate. But talk to me about sort of maybe other chapters, but your more recent angling. We'll get on Farriers at some point as well. Where sort of took your fancy? The same type of venues always, isn't it? Like those special fish. Those
I got a great love affair with Northampton. I love it up there. To me, it's like the Great Escape. I'm bombing up the M1 or whatever road it is I go up. I don't even know the name of the roads I travel on. That's what I use. I haven't even got one of those things in the car that tell you where to go even. And it's leaving the world behind it in a certain respect. And I've got a wonderful friend of mine, ex-one-para guy, Mark Denton, and he lives in what supposedly were probably the little tied cottages at the back of the estate in Melchbourne. And when you turn into Melchbourne, I'm surprised anybody's alive there. It's like one of them little villages in Midsummer Murders. Everybody's been murdered. I expect to see Barnaby coming around the corner or something. And I've starred in Midsummer Murders as well. The speaking part. Oh, yeah, speaking part. I could tell you loads of things.
Where's this segue
a guy
career?
called Paul Bennett is a carp fisherman. I met him on Chalk Farm years ago in the army. We talked about earlier on. He has done loads of things. He's worked as assistant director, I think it is, for films, and he was doing Midsummer Murder for years. And I got 2 speaking parts in it. And my truck even got in it as well. No. It was about a rare bird that had been spotted. And I had to stand up in the pub table and go, "She's showing now!" And I run off round the corner, and all the cars were supposed to run out of the the car park, and my big yellow truck was the first one, and off she steamed, like smoke on the wheels and everything. It was brilliant, and they kept it in and showed it on the telly.
Showing now.
She's showing now. Yeah, I thought I sounded more like a guy, somebody giving birth to a baby or something. You know what I mean?
A
midwife. Yeah.
Time to go.
But yeah, no, that's one of the things that have come out of fishing. There's loads of it. You know, going fishing with. I can't start. We'll be here forever.
No, that's good. I like this, mate.
No,
this wasn't in the plan.
No, it wasn't in the plan. Yeah, so we had about 6 or 7 where you could see we were in it, sat in a pub somewhere or doing Lynn's been in it. Yeah.
Get the family in.
Yeah, no, it was brilliant. It's so much fun, and I mean, some of the people I've met, and you meet them. I went with James Corden. We had to go fishing. It was him and John Terry. And John wanted a copy of my book, which I signed up for him.
He's a bit of an angler, though, Terry, isn't he?
Yeah, but do you know what? I'm not into football, and it's the first thing I say to him. I've met a few of them. Dave Seaman, Dave Seaman.
Oh, Dave Seaman.
Lee Bowyer I've fished with. There's a few of them. But they are all. When you're in the public domain, people get such a twisted idea about how people are. I mean, John was a ruthless footballer. He was my kind of footballer, you know, from the early days. It looked like he should have been playing in the 1966 World Cup to me. He was a brick wall, you know. I had such a wonderful chat with him. And it was great. And I got photographs of me with him and everything. And I look at him and I have a chuckle. And I think, well, I mean, I don't know anything about it. I don't read anything. I'm not a gossip columnist or anything. I don't read newspapers. I don't watch the news or anything. I take people for how they are when I meet them.
100%.
And they were beautiful. David Seaman, what a lovely guy. You know? And he's a monster, isn't he? And Lynn, I hate him, really, because Lynn, every time we meet him, she wants to cuddle him all the time because he's just a monster.
Don't let Lynn cuddle John Terry is all I'm going to say to you, Chili.
Really?
Mate,
okay. We'll leave him out of the equation. I can't get too violent with him. It's like my mate Ali over there, like 20 months stone he weighs. He's not ounce of fat on him.
He's got
I could give him a cuddle. And I'm like,
I got him to flip that screen on the old camera. I thought he was going to break it in half, mate. It's unbelievable.
No, I love it. No, I've had some great. That's all because of carp fishing, and there's been some great things happened over the years. Some of the things I can't even talk about, but it's been an exciting thing. But it's all carried on by the things that I'm doing on fishing. Where were we? Northampton.
Yes,
my little lake up there. Melchbourne, the estate lake, and because the people who live in the house want to be able to see the water. It's quite an open water, but on the cover, I used the biggest fish in there. It was the first fish I ever caught from there as well. 38.4, I think she weighed, and 37. I can't remember. I don't want to say it was bigger than it was. Anyway, I wrote Light My Fire. But it was the best. My mate Mark, this lad from One Para, he takes the most wonderful. You put another person there with the same camera on the same settings, in the photographs won't be the same. I've found that so many times. Yeah. He just gets perfect, and that had to be the cover of Light My Fire. And that fish wasn't even mentioned in the book. I just wanted it to be on the cover of a book, but it just got me, that place. It was so wonderful, stalking around, and the fishing was superb, and I fell in love with it. And there was a lake just down the road. This is the kind of thing I was looking for at the time. 45 acres. There was 1 or 2 people, maybe 2, who'd had a little pop on it. And Mark used to say, we'll get down there and have a look. And I took up an inflatable, and we left it up there, and we went out one day. I found some fish in a margin eventually. I was sat on an island. I think I'd been there 2 or 3 times before. I hadn't seen anything. And I found 6 fish that day, 4 in one place, 2 in another. And they were the only fish I saw ever, whenever I was there. And then it came to, right, I've got to catch one. Yeah. I have to catch one. Yeah. And I set up on the end of this little island one day, rough as hell. I just stuffed myself in the bushes, no swims, no anything. It was just perfect carp fishing. Dropped the rigs in the edge there, waded out and found the little spots in the deeper margins. And early in the morning, as light was coming up, one of the rods rattled off, and I caught this mirror, and it was just like a lump of granite. It was just, its scales were like, half an inch thick almost. They're so pronounced on his body. And £29 and 12 ounces. And I still maintain it's one of the greatest carp I've ever caught. I caught a couple of little cricket-back commons in there, but I never went back again. They emptied it out, turned it into a marina, and it's connected to the River Nene now. So I don't think there's any fishing on it. But that was an incredible fish. But those are the sort of things I was looking for. I went to loads of places, really. West Hampton, it was one. It wasn't really on the radar for a lot of people. And it was a bit awkward with the skiing club down there. I think it's a bit even more awkward today on there. Yeah. But I met some lovely people down there. A couple of people didn't like the fact that I was fishing there, being writing about my fishing and all the rest of it. I don't think they realised how useless I was until they saw me fishing. I think then they started talking to me when they knew how crap I was at it. But anyway, I only went there for a couple of months, 1 year, and I caught the one fish I wanted to catch out of there, Vern's fish, 41, so just a beautiful mirror. And I think it's one of the greatest photographs I've ever had taken. I waded out in the lake to put her back. Yeah, and I'm sort of down in the corner with returning the fish, and the far bank's like half a mile away, and it's just great. Such a wintry shot. I love it. But it was very, very warm, and then it got cold. I didn't fish again. I went back for a couple of months, and I caught the other 240s that were in there.
How'd you catch them? Baiting areas?
Yeah, a lot of it. Because again, we talked about finding features earlier on, and I don't want to make myself sound good. I will tell you I'm a hard worker. Whether I'm any good or not is a different matter. But I noticed that they're all casting the standard 60 to 80 yards and stuff and a bit of baiting. So everything I did was cast at range, get as far as I could. And when the further I got, the more interested it became. It's like I was going over massive, great big lumps out in the middle. And I thought, that's perfect. They're features that are going to feed her. And one of the guys came up and said, I've never seen anybody casting that far on here. And I baited it all up. And I caught loads of fish out of there, loads of it, and it was wonderful from a totally commercial point of view. It was wonderful. I had so much to write about, so many photographs to add to the album. So I see so many people who write or used to write, because we ain't got no magazines left, and they're showing the same fish all the time. You know what I mean? So, you think, how boring is this becoming? But
you've been going through my Instagram page.
Well, don't do that. You're all right. You get away with anything. I'm not a follower of anything.
I had some creative angles on there.
But no, it can get a bit boring like that. But no, I had so much fun there doing something a bit different. But that was all boilies at range. Stiff link pop-ups over the top, and away you go.
How far? What we talking?
120s, 130s.
Good old lick.
Yeah, and just keep baiting it. I mean, I'd stand there with my buckets of boilies, for 2 or 3 hours baiting them up, and but they responded to. They'd never seen it before. That's probably why it's an unusual situation. I mean, if everybody was doing it, the situation would change. Of course, it would. But I'm always trying to do something a little bit different, And I'm not suggesting that you can go up to Brasenose 1 or something and just fish in the edges, because I don't think. Everything's out in the middle waiting to get fed, aren't they? Every carp knows where they can get food with an element of caution. They can trough their heads off all day long, every day of the week. But I'm trying to do something a little bit different, and I think that's what does it. But so many places that I've fished and loved. But you said we got to Farriers, and I got told about. I'd applied for a ticket, I think in 2000. 11 or 12,
right?
And it takes a long time, there are some favours you can get when you're in my position. I openly admit I've got tickets for waters because of what I did for a living, and it's good advertisement for people, and I totally understand that. The Carp Society weren't having any of it, and I like that. I think that's good. They said, if you get your telephone call in or whatever it was on the day, the 1st of April of all the days to do it, you had to phone in on, and I got an answer. I got myself a ticket, which was wonderful. And I like, if I can, I fish Mondays and Tuesdays.
Right.
Straight away, I'm doing a little bit better than 90% of the competition because they're fishing. They got to fish at the weekends. They got to fish around families and their homes and their work and all the rest of it. So I've got an advantage, even though I only fish 2 days a week, of fishing when there ain't so many people there. So I get a lot more options in how I want to go about my fishing. But Farriers was something I never ever expected.
No,
it was bizarre, utterly bizarre in so many angles. Very, very shallow.
Yeah,
in most places.
Yeah.
There's one area when you go through the gate right down to the left. There's almost like a back bay area, if you like. That's quite deep. Goes down to about 9 foot, but they rarely got in there. You did get the odd person would go in there every now and again and get a little hit, maybe 2 or 3 fish, and that was it. But they never really would. Then they didn't. It was all out in the open water, and I started fishing. I went through the gate the first time I went there, 2014. I went through the gate, and the first thing I saw was carp jumping about 40 yards out. And I thought, what's going on here? And I thought, I need to walk round. I can't just start fishing straight away. I need to walk round like an idiot. Well, I got about halfway. I thought, what are you doing? Every time I look back, I was in this. So I went down and I used little 12mm pop-ups. And I thought, I'm just going to chuck them. I whacked them about 80 yards, reeled it across the surface and lowered it down in the area. And it was just carp after carp, jumping after jump. And every time they jump, both rods would go. Tench, and more tench.
Wow.
And I think I lost count. I think it's in my diary, which actually is over there. 32 tench, I think I had that night. And I was utterly, it just shattered me. You sat, and it was a bit of a rainy old night, and I thought, right, okay, we're going to just change tactics here, So I put about 3 of them on a stiff link pop-up, these pink pop-ups, anything.
3 12mm?
Yeah.
Go on.
And I lobbed that as a big lump of putty on the line. I just thought, at least I'll just get some little pulls when the tench are going to do it. That's all I might get some sleep. And one of them, I think the second one hit the bottom, and it's just the line flew out my hand, and I had a 27-pound common. And that was my opening gambit. But I soon got into the tune of it. And if I went out that gate not having caught 6 or 7 fish, I was a bit miffed. And
what was the general consensus of other anglers there at the time when you were fishing it? Was it the same sort of business?
No, a few of them did.
Right,
there was a few. There was a lad, I can't remember his last name, he would hate me for not saying, but his name's Stu. He was a remarkable angler, a really remarkable angler. And you get them when you fish locally on lakes. You'll go there, and there's a couple of them, but he wasn't one who was just fishing there. He now fishes other places. He's moved on. He did what he wanted to do there, but he was incredible. But yeah, we had a wonderful time, and I think I caught 3 or 4 40-pound commons, but there were a couple of real monsters in there. And one day I was in this, I forgot what the little swim was called, but you're only fishing sort of 25 yards out over the back of this little hump, and I saw the fish passing over the top a few times, and I got a bite early evening, and within 45 seconds this fish was in my net. And that was probably the best fight I ever got from a common out of that lake.
Really?
Yeah.
Because they look like they should absolutely smash you to bits.
You'd think they would. The only ones that ever fought was if you caught one of the small commons.
Yeah.
They're normally the little males. They get to sort of 25-pound, big pecks, and they get a little bit angry. All the big ones. When I wrote Light My Fire, I couldn't help, but I tried to emphasise the fight to make it sound a bit like, there was weed on the line and I had to get it off. But it was all over in about 30 seconds, 40 seconds.
It's like a massive breed.
Yeah, 46 pounds and 10 ounces, and it was absolutely stunning. It really was a stunning fish, and it kind of blew me away. And I thought, I just want to go and get on with winter fishing, because believe it or not, winter fishing is my favourite time of year for fishing. A lot of people have got their favourite times, normally spring.
Yeah, autumn, spring.
But I love the winter. Nobody there. I can get on, build plans for myself, do the kind of fishing that I want to do, without it necessarily getting interrupted. And that served me so well over the course of time. You get there when the lake's very quiet, fish are more active, and even when it gets freezing cold, they're quite active at times. And you get an idea about the lake. So, yeah, after I caught that 46-pound common at Farriers, I decided that I'd pull off and go somewhere else for the winter. And it's unbelievable about what we're just about to talk about. Because, I get moments. And thankfully, I think talking is one of the ways to stop them happening so much. And I've got another thing in my head growing, unfortunately, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And it just knocks me on my feet. It's just, excuse me a minute.
Are you all right? We'll break there, mate.
So, no, I don't want to break. I want to keep going because it's. I think it's important to. I went back the following year, and in 2016, now we are.
Yeah.
14 and 15. I went back in 2016, and I was doing really well. And I was still catching loads and loads of fish out there. I was using 7 or 8 kilos of boilers every couple of days I was up there and catching. And it was incredible fishing. What a place. What a bunch of people. Probably the most lovely syndicate I've ever fished on. There was a guy. There was loads of different guys. There was a guy called Gaz. He'd fished all over the place. And then we used to sit down and just talk about anything but fishing. Another lad called Tim, he was a bass player in a jazz band. We used to sit there, and the last thing we ever used to talk about was carp, really. It was everything like, but probably as a whole, the best syndicate I've ever fished on in my life. Really was. It was in it. Just such, the fishing was out of this world, but it wasn't necessarily about the fishing. You know, like I say, sometimes it's the company you keep that make it good. And I did love it, but I was. We knew we were going to get to it, but I was starting to get ill. And unbelievably, I've just had one of them moments in my head because of what's now happening in there. And it's quite hard for me to keep talking sometimes, but I find it better if I talk through it. It helps me to keep going. But I was sat in a car one day and I went to sleep in the car park, and a couple of people arrived after me and nicked the swims that I wanted to get in. And I thought there's something wrong. Did I tell anybody? Did I out? I just kept on fishing.
Just tired.
Tired.
I knew this eye was getting bad.
In what way do you say, like vision was blurry?
Yeah, if I rubbed my eye like that, I was thinking, wow, I can't see anything. Or very blurred and that. And I was starting to get sort of pains in my head. And I'd like to say I had a headache, but it ain't a headache. And I still don't get headaches. I get pain in my head and it's awful. I fell asleep and I was thinking about it, and it happened a couple more times. And one night this was October time, 2016, I'd moved. I've been chasing these carp all day, moving around the lake. It's packed, and it was getting more and more packed, probably because I was publicising so much of what I call, your own enemy at times. I found this tiny little swim, and I felt awful. My head was just, But I managed to get 2 upbaits where I wanted them. Then the coots decided that it's so shallow that they come in. Then the tufties, then the swans. And I just kept on recasting. You could see the carp behind the weed,
right,
where my upbait was. You could see them mooching around. They were trying to get in there, but the birds were frightening them out of it. But I kept on recasting, kept on putting it. And at 4 o'clock, bang on 4 o'clock that evening, I got absolutely no idea why it happened. Every bird on the lake turned and swam away. And my 2 upbaits, I just repositioned them very quickly as they were leaving, right next, as tight to that weed as I could get them. And the birds just went, everything went. And I just sat there, and all of a sudden it just pulled up tight. I picked up the rod and I reeled. If it wasn't for the amount of weed and the fact I had to get in the water, so I pulled my waders on, that fish would have been in my net in about 20 seconds. It never even flicked its tail. And I just scooped it up in the landing net. There wasn't that much weed involved. Just didn't fight at all. Yeah. And there's this behemoth of a common in there. And I'm thinking, there was a guy up the way. He came down out my way at 46.15. And I didn't want to fish after that. And I knew I'd never fish the lake again. And I reeled him in, went up the offie, got a couple of bottles of wine, sat with that bloke. We had a chat, put the worlds to rights, packed everything away in the morning. And I never went back. And do you know, I think in the back of my mind, I knew there was something very, very wrong with me. And I didn't really want to go anywhere. I didn't really want to do anything. I fished local to home and I didn't want to go anywhere. And at the beginning of June, the following year, 2017, this eye was just going. and it was just everything. It was difficult to do anything. I had to give in the end and I told Lynn all about it, and we'd arranged a hospital visit. The doctor sent me to the eye man at Frimley Park Hospital. I went in, closed his eyes. I can't really see. I could hardly see out of that eye. I had to go back the following week for another test, and I went in and saw this bloke, and he thought he said, I think you've had something like 15 little strokes. Jeez. And he said, but just to be on the safe side, I need you to go and have an MRI. I've booked you one, for the next couple of days. He said, when I get the results, which will be about 2 weeks, he said, I'll get you an appointment to come back and see me.
This is the eye specialist, yeah?
Yeah, this is the eye specialist from me. He rang me 7:30 in the evening, about 2 days later, from his house.
Never good.
And said, you've got to come and see me tomorrow morning. He said, there's no waiting list. You don't sit down. You come to my office and you walk straight in. I need to talk to you. And
bloody hell.
Lynn came with me. Obviously, Lynn I don't know how people can be as supportive as she is. She's an incredible woman, considering the things she's been through. And we sat down, and he said, listen, I can't go any further because it's not my field of expertise other than to tell you you've got a brain tumour and you seriously need some help. Now, I'm thinking, okay, brain tumour. I'm not a flapper. I've never been. I'm not.
No, you've been in a few situations, haven't you?
So I'm pretty cool with it. And Lynn's sort of looking at me, and I'm like, well, yeah, whatever. They'll just drill a hole in front of me head, take it out, and I'll be angling next week. That's all I could think. He said, right, you've got to go and see...
it never crossed your mind that, like...
Oh, no, I didn't think this was life-threatening in any way.
Right.
And, to the world out there, in the hospitals, this thing was just getting worse by the hour, practically. Anyway, I had an appointment to go and see Mr. Stapleton at St George's Hospital. He's a brain surgeon. We walked in the door, and I'm Mr. Cool again, so I don't know, mate, how you doing? Yep, Lynn's with me, and he said, after he'd been talking a bit, he tried to explain on the aptular modulation of a flat doody and your doodah. He might as well have been talking ancient Egyptian to me. He said, you don't look that worried. I said, well, first of all, I don't really understand anything you've said. He said, but you're not taking this very seriously. I said, I ain't got a effing clue what you're talking about, mate. I said, I'm not being horrible, but I don't know what you're saying. And he turned the screen round to show me the MRI scan that I'd had. And I need you can see your two eye sockets at the bottom of the picture, the bottom of the screen. And my brain was like a billiard ball inside there. A brain's got all those contours and things all the way around it. It was so swollen, there wasn't one of them. The whole thing was just swollen and crushed into my brain all over. And in that corner, as half the size of that mug, 15 centimetres around it was this tumour just sat there. And he said, he was asking me questions more in amazement than anything else, that I hadn't felt anything before this, because it could have been growing for a few years. Yeah. Well, had been growing for a few years. And he said, I've got to get you in as quickly as I can to get you, but I need to try and get some of the swelling down beforehand. So they put me on some steroids, which didn't really work. I popped up to, I think the heaviest I got up to was about 19.5 stone, which is like, I hated it. Like a water barrel, but it didn't work really. So he said, look, I've got to take it out. He said, if I don't take it out now, and in 3 months you're going to be a goner.
Jeez.
And I was like, okay, I understand. Thank you for So
what are your feelings then? You got Lynn with you. It's like life and death, literally.
I don't know. Lynn and we've never been flappers. We don't flap about things, and Lynn will have a worry, I'll have a worry about things, but we don't openly flap about things. I remember one day I woke up in the morning finding the bungalow had been flooded out. Swung my legs out of bed and splosh, splosh, splosh. I said, we better do something about this. We'll put our wellies on and we'll have a cup of tea and we'll think about it. We went in the kitchen, made a cup of tea with our Wellingtons on, drinking tea, deciding who we'd ring to get it all sorted out. But anyway, that's what we're like. Right. So we sort of tended, when I was told about it, that after that day with Mr. Stapleton and I went home, we probably didn't speak to each other for 24 hours.
Really?
Not in any, I hate this, I can't talk, but it just, we didn't know what to say, and it took us a while to just come to terms. And then when he rang and said, look, this has gone on, we can't wait any longer, you've got to come in. And what I thought was going to be an 7 to 8 hour operation turned into an absolute marathon for good reasons and bad reasons. Something very awkward happened at the start of it that caused much alarm on their behalf. But secondly, I was so still on that bed. It's such a long story. I don't want to bore people to death.
You're not boring anyone.
There's a carotid artery.
Yes.
And another artery that this tumour has grown around. Now, the carotid artery, if that...
You're gone.
You're gone.
Yeah.
And the other one as well. If
right.
you nipped them,
so you bleed out, you're gone.
There's nothing they can do about it. And I was so still eventually on that table after the initial crisis that he was able to... what he reckoned, he would take 85% of it out, then I'd be treated with chemotherapy to get rid of the rest of it. He got rid of the whole thing.
Jeez.
Which was utterly amazing, but it took them 15 hours? But it took them so long because they knew it was going to be a long operation. I remember lying there on the stretcher in the pre-operation room. I forgot what they call it now. And they're all walking around and making calculations because they knew how long I'd be. They knew I was going to be under for a long time while he did what he was doing. So it took them about an hour after I got taken down to get the their calculations right, proper. But 14 hours it took him. Unbelievable, wasn't it? 14 hours. I mean, which meant I was down there on that slab from the start of it to when I got back for about 20 hours.
Jeez.
Now, the operation wasn't that long. It was 14 hours. But
before that when he talked to you, what did he sort of say with regards to the operation and sort of percentages, success rates and things like that? Was there that whole chat or
He
not?
didn't talk to me about that at all. I only picked up those... I knew it was an emergency,
of course.
But when I knew that the steroid stuff hadn't worked and he had to go in, it was sheer bus time, and that's what it was called after that. And he had to do something about it, which he did 100%.
Yeah,
and he came up to me twice. Well, I was in there for a long time, 6 weeks. And he came up twice in that time on his own. Now, he never did that to anybody else. He was so excited about what he'd done and what he'd achieved with it. And he'd come up and talk to me and say things and ask me how I was feeling and what I felt and how it was going. And it was amazing. I should never have started, talking and doing the things that I did so quickly. And he was just us. I think I stayed in there because I was a little bit of a bacteria in a petri dish, and I think they wanted to see how I got on. You know, it was amazing. But I tell you, the most amazing thing, the most amazing thing, I was in the ICU after the operation for a week, trying to keep me alive. And Lynn, I wanted a week, about 5 days. And Lynn sat by my bed. I'll tell you about Lynn again in a minute with this kind of thing. She sat there. She had to be brought in by people. She can't drive because of her illness. And she had to be brought in to see me. She's sitting there just holding my hand all the time. And I remember waking up one day and I looked at something. All I can remember at the moment was there was something there, some screens that I was plugged into or something like that, And I turned my head and the first thing I saw was Lynn's face. Yeah. Probably the greatest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. But then I'm sort of back in unconsciousness or whatever. Lynn took a picture of me in there. With all the pipes in my head and everything. And not for her, she knows what I'm like. I want it for, let's go and show everybody what the hell. But... yeah, on the ward, it was wonderful. I had my two friends, Drew and Laura, and they got the two kids, Ria and Indiana, and they used to come in every day. There was another couple as well, and they brought Lynn in every day to see me with all the troubles they had in their lives, families, and looking after everything. It was amazing, and I'd never known anything like it. But the biggest thing, I didn't have my mobile phone there, obviously. There's no point in it. And I switched it on. This is about week 3. It took 90 minutes for it to stop making noises, and it needed charging in the middle of it. And it was just messages from all around the world, from people that I never thought I'd ever speak to again. Old soldiers from South Africa, Australia, New Zealand. It was just incredible what happened. And it sort of, I still wasn't right for doing anything. And eventually, they asked if I wanted to go to Frimley Park Hospital just to keep recovering. And I said, yeah, I'll do that. And Lynn I'd got somebody in there to take a picture of me with my head.
Yeah, the scar.
The stitches in and all that. And just for future reference. And and I decided eventually I'd put something on there and tell people. Because I told people there were so many silly rumours about what was happening to me that I didn't want it to stay that way. So I put out the picture. And it's like, I think it's like 1/3 people involved in it. And just thousands of comments. And it utterly blew me away. I never thought I was very new to the internet game. I never saw the point in it. I like magazines and writing and stuff like that. That instant fame, I don't think gets anybody anywhere, to be honest with you. But it was there. It was a tool that we use in the trade. And it just blew me away. That amount of people cared and got involved to say something and send their wishes. And I think of all the things, apart from seeing Lynn, that was the one thing that just blew me out of the water.
Yeah.
And if anybody thinks that those kind of things don't give you a lift to carry on, they're sadly mistaken. It was one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me, seeing that response from people. And it's not how popular am I, it's how much people care.
Yeah.
And that was the overriding thing. And it lifted me. And I can't look at a camera without thanking people. And they will never really understand the part they played in what I thought was going to be a complete recovery. But unbeknown to me, things were... very soon after that, it started to go back downhill again, and I didn't know about it. It was difficult. I sat at home for 9 months, and Lynn, again, bless her heart, she applied to Swansea a little bit earlier than I should for my driving licence. And once they'd read the medical reports, and I had my eye test at Specsavers, which unbelievably they made me take 3 times because they would not believe a man with one eye had that good a vision. This eye had just completely taken over. I didn't have to read anymore with glasses on, and I could see for miles.
That's mad.
Unbelievable. The brain had just taken over proceedings.
Did you when you've had this so obviously you've had this operation, they've removed it, it's been really successful, which is testament to the surgery and everything that's gone on there. Recovery is another matter. You've gone through that sort of stage, waking up. Was there anything sort of rehab-wise they got you to do, or was it just a case of trying to function again?
You just got to try and function. You're on yourself. I mean, I sat there forever. I remember, Adam Penning had come round to visit, and he had a cup of tea, and someone knocked on the door as a postman, and he had a massive, it was obviously a picture of some description. I had no idea what it was. I sat in my chair. This is about, I'm about 4 months after the operation. I'm still sat in the living room doing nothing, can't do anything. And Lynn got me a pair of scissors and I snipped it all open. And it probably one of the most emotional moments of my whole life, I have to say that. It was a picture from Fox. Yeah. And they put it in a lovely frame, and it was the picture of me with Charlie's mate from Frimley, which they know is the most special carp I will ever catch. And on the back, everyone from Fox. I hate hanging it up on the wall because you can't see the back of it.
Well, they signed the back of it.
Everybody had signed the back of it and wished me all the best. And I just burst into tears. I think I cried for about 20 minutes. And it was just such a wonderful thing. But they were happening all the time. You've seen the people from all around the world that got hold of me, and people that I soldiered with, people that I fished with, people that I've known, from my school days. There was a couple of lads and that, it was just absolutely incredible. And I just couldn't believe what was happening. And I am a fit man. I've had a very fit life, and I know I've got a very slow heart rate, and my oxygen absorption's like 100%, and all the rest of the good things. And they sent me to Specsavers to do my thing. I got my thing. They said, "Okay, we'll send that off to
DVLA."
To DVLA, and it's very difficult. When you've been driving all your life, all that freedom not to have it. But my neighbours, man. Stuart Dawes up the road was the first one. Bless his heart. Came round one day, had his barrow and the gear, and we went down to a lake called took me down. I was on a stick now, still all a bit wobbly. And this is 3 months after the operation.
3 months?
And we went down to Shorefields, and Linda said, "You've got 4 hours. That's it to stop, and then you're coming home." And we set up. The first thing I did was try to cast. Put that over when you're trying to do. It wasn't close. It was about 30 yards maximum. Put a patch over your eye and do it.
Killer.
Mate, I lost a load of legs trying to perception to get that PVA bag in. I did it eventually, and 20 minutes later, me and Stuart sat there putting the world to rights and one of the roses, and off it went. And I was like, "Oh my God." And I landed, and I always thought Charlie's mate would be the Carp. It was equal to Walker's record, and it was a common. That's all I ever wanted from my life, from a 6-year-old boy. But in the bottom of my net, eventually, was a 16-pound common, 15-pound common. I wouldn't even give it that, really. We'll call it a mid-double, but it probably wasn't even that. And I have to say, it's the greatest carp I've ever caught. And I shed a load of tears. We were trying to film it and talk about it, and it was very hard to do it. And I caught a little mirror later on, and then we got going. Stuart was quite sergeant majorish, he's only a young lad, but he made sure I got off the water within the regulated 4 hours and got me home. I slept for 2 days. Yeah. Solid. Didn't wake up. Jeez. Unbelievable. I did for a pee, obviously, but it was just shocking. Took it out of me. We went and did a night after that. I didn't want to go again. I didn't want to go fishing again. That was sort of October. So in November, he said, "You want to do a night with me down there?" And I asked him, there's a lot of sorting out to do. And to be quite honest with you, I didn't fish the night. I had to reel in. Yeah. But I wanted to catch fish in darkness. Now, it's not that easy, a water. They're only little fish, but it ain't, you've got to be on your toes to catch them. I had 4 bites by 8:30 in the evening. Only little commons, like 15, 16, I think it was probably about 16 pounds. It doesn't matter about the weight, but it was just unbelievable. But I had to reel in and I went to sleep. And I put the rods out at first light. And I caught one of the real old mirrors in there. And again, I think we did weigh it 17 pounds and 12 ounces. And it was remarkable. And I knew I could do that. So I'm cool with that now. I'm cool. I can go fishing and I can catch carp. And it wasn't such a necessity to do it quickly all over again. Because
that was a big sort of motivation throughout your recovery, wasn't it? I remember was like there was never any point in that where you thought, "I'm never going to carp fish again." Really, you were pretty headstrong and
no, I was going to go.
Yeah, you were
absolutely, absolutely. And it's again, I couldn't do anything on my own. I couldn't get all that gear in my barrel and all that. And it's people around. There's a lad called Tim lives up the road from me, and he was getting to my door all the time. The owner, Mark, of Willow Park. Yeah. He lived up Ivy Bridge, but he every day was coming in to see his lake and all that. He'd pick me up and take me up to Willow Park. So I started doing some fishing on there, and I caught a few fish, remarkable things. And I had a 26-pound common one day. Not the prettiest fish in the world you'll ever catch, and lots of damage, obviously, from being caught over the years. But Joe Wright, bless his heart, and I've known Joe long before he ever did his the Carpology magazine thing. I've known him for donkey's years. He's a wonderful guy. He put that picture on the front cover.
Yeah, I remember.
And it was like, if you need shots in the arm, it was like that, and it such a massive thing to happen. I was so excited when I saw it. I just couldn't believe it. I think I probably had a tear then as well.
Yeah.
But it just drives you on. And then I wanted to go on, and Tim used to take me up to Hollybush.
Yeah.
And that was remarkable. It shows you how remarkable carp fishing is. All the time we travel, the days before when I knew I was going there, I was talking about this mid-20 fully scale. I'd love to catch that. It's a lovely fish. That'd be perfect. I know I'm all right then. And I had a walk round. I did me bit, pushed me bar around, and I saw some fish showing a spot, eventually got set up there. About an hour and a half later, I got a bite, and it was that fish, £25 fully scaled. That is weird, isn't it? Unbelievable. But that happened so many times. Things like that have happened. There can be some spooky incidents in this lot, but I caught a few of the older fish in there, and I just had a great time, And then one day, DVL, he sent me my driving license back, and I'll never forget getting in Daisy, my little van. People think I'm a bit strange and I don't buy lots of vehicles. The vehicles I get, I fall in love with, and I never want to get rid of them. I had a Mondeo before that, a Mondeo Estate, and I had it for 7 years. It's my fishing vehicle, and nothing ever went wrong with it. It was a brilliant car, but you got to 150,000, you got to get another one, haven't you? And my little van is doing well. But I got in there, got myself up there, and just kept fishing, just kept doing the things I wanted to do. And then all I wanted to do was drive down to see my mum in Plymouth. That was all I wanted to do. That was a big thing. My father had died in amongst all of that, and my mum was going to get moved into a home from the house and everything. Being this far away from me is difficult at the best of the times, but when it's like that, it was so difficult. And I thought I'm going to try a long journey. I need a long journey, and Richard Stangram rang me up from up his neck of the woods, up Bedford, I think it is, isn't it? And he runs a lake up there, Hook Lake. I call it Greenmire now because it's so like Redmire, but it's a tiny little triangular shaped little lake, dammed up and everything. And I went up there. We had a charity event. Tim came down from up north, from Sheffield. Tim Paisley, Laney was there, a few others. It was good fun. But I just wanted to fish, and I couldn't drink. I don't drink now. I haven't had a drink since it's all happened. So I went back to my rods and got my rods out and sort of went to sleep. I had a couple of fish in the night. I loved it there. I had another one in the morning. It was really cool. So I went up there a couple of times. Now, once I was happy I'd do that hour and a half, it was time for me and Lynn to make the break. So I unleashed the yellow monster and make sure I had a few £100 in my pocket to get enough petrol to get there. And we drove down to Plymouth. Awkward journey, really, if I say so myself. And the only thing I think, I was legally entitled, but it's other people I worry about. I don't worry about myself. I've done too much silly stuff to think I worry about myself. And we got there after about 6 stops, and I'll never forget. It was almost, not quite, but almost as equal to that moment when I saw Lynn after the operation. But yeah, the three of us in the big hallway of a race, I just hugged for about 20 minutes. I didn't stop crying. I know I didn't. I got no shame in admitting it. It was just such a wonderful thing. And we went down on the hoe. I got her in my truck, which is very difficult for her. Yeah. I got her in the truck. Lynn's in the middle on the bench seat, and we drove down to the hoe and ate scones, cream and jam, and had cups of coffee, and I had a bit of a giggle, and it's probably one of the best days out I've ever had. And at that point I knew I could carry on, but it wasn't long after that when things started to go downhill again, unfortunately, and I started getting their pain attacks.
Yeah.
And what had happened in the operation, there's 3 nerves that run across your face, major nerves. They go like that. And this middle one had been cut. It goes around the back of your eye and everything. It had been damaged. So I was getting massive surface pain through here. And I think I told you before we started, it was like somebody was running at me 100 miles an hour, stabbing me in the head with a red hot poker. And it just brought me to my knees, and it kept on going and going. And do I tell anybody? Did I yell? Not until I just couldn't stand it anymore. And, it wasn't me telling anybody really. What happened? I just didn't feel well one day at home, sort of 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I just didn't feel well. And this is Christmas I'm at now, weren't I? Christmas. 2020, Christmas 2020.
2020.
And I was just in the living room. I just felt awful. I started shaking and going and everything. There was pain. Lynn got me into bed, and it just got so bad I was just all over the gaffers. I was just literally like a big ball of jelly, just going. And she rang the ambulance people, the paramedics came in, and she just said, well, we're going to take you. I don't really need to know much. I don't remember any of this. They were asking me the old question. Got the bench in, got me out there, got me to Frimley Park. And I was there. Now, what had happened somewhere in my body, this is what I get told, there was an infection somewhere, and it got into my brain where all of that was. And at one point, Lynn, bless her heart, as ill as she is, slept on that chair for 5 days. Curled up on this tiny little chair next to my bed. It wasn't the ICU, but it was a ward connected to the trauma place. And they pumped me full of everything. Nothing helped at all. And they said, that's it. There ain't nothing there.
That's it?
Yeah, to her. They said, that's the end of it. Don't know what to do. There's nothing else we can do for him. And they thought I was going to die. Jeez. And somebody, somewhere, and I've never found out who, decided that they would pump just pure penicillin into me. And 12 hours later, I sort of sat up in bed and said, what am I doing here?
That's mental.
It's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable story. And they just rushed me out of there as quick as they could, because hospitals are the worst place to get an infection. Yeah. And they got me out there as quickly as they possibly could. My mate, Tony Smeets, his wife Jan, came and picked me up. She's the first person I could get hold of, and she bombed out there, drove like an absolute lunatic to get me home as well. Bless her heart. That's what carp fishing can do for you. And I sort of weathered the storm at home for a while, and I didn't feel that bad, to be honest with you. And the first thing I want to do after I've had a cuddle with Lynn, go fishing. Yeah. So I bombed over to Willow Park.
Yeah, man.
Caught a few fish up to 27 pound. Harry Charon came over from Fox.
I remember,
and filmed it, and we did a bit of a thing, but ridiculous amount of fish I caught. And I was sort of back in the groove again, I thought, this is cool.
Talk to me about so I know it seems pretty morbid, but obviously there's the whole sort of mortality issue. There, you're sort of, somebody's actually said to Lynn, right, this is all we can do. Yeah. It doesn't look very good. The difference between catching a carp coming out of the back of that and catching a carp before all this condition, can you quantify the difference to you there?
No, I can't. Not at all. It's a completely, utterly different experience. Yeah. I talked about Charlie's mate earlier on, best carp I'll ever catch, because it was comparable to Walker's record, the fish I read about as a 6-year-old boy and dreamt 41 years of catching. It had to be a common as well. 44-pound mirrors were not in the equation. It had to be a common. And I thought, I'll never, ever, ever be able to beat that. It will never be beaten. Nothing will ever be that good again, not matter what it weighs. And I still think that probably would have been the case if I hadn't have got the first tumor. And I went down to that lake at Shorefields with Stuart Dawes, and I caught that 15-pound common, and that will be the greatest carp I've ever caught. It has to be. There will be nothing that means, in fishing terms, that will mean that much to me ever again. It proved I could go fishing and I could catch a carp, and it was just it was just brilliant. Nothing, you couldn't have scripted it any better, really. Yeah. And whatever size that carp was, and I'm very often not one of those that worries about the size of the fish I'm catching. It just meant everything to me, and it still does to this day. I look at it, that picture, and just think, wow, But as I say, I'd had that infection, and obviously they wanted to keep an eye on things to make sure things. So I was booked in for, I think it was every 3 months I had to have an MRI, and I had an MRI shortly after that at Frimley Park, and they forgot to send my results to Mr. Stapleton, secretary at St. George's. Now, it went on about a month later. I said to Lynn, how come we hadn't heard anything? There's probably nothing wrong. They couldn't have found anything. It must be okay. So we didn't say anything. I think Lynn wanted to. I said, I don't bother. We're all right. And I started getting those little moments again with the pain and everything. I was like, there's something right. We had to, what happened to the results of the scan? And Lynn rang up Mr. Stapleton's secretary, and she was horrified. And within an hour, he had got the results of that test, and he had alerted everybody to what was happening, and I had another tumour growing. The problem was it's growing in, the other one grew on the outside and came out of my brain. This one's growing into it, but it's growing into where the other one was. So it's causing more and more problems, and there's no treatment for it at the moment. They can't operate; it's in too dangerous a place. So all I'm doing at the moment, I cannot even explain the pain. It is beyond any pain. I've broken plenty of things and had plenty of pain over the years. It isn't pain. It's just so far beyond that. It just doesn't feel like pain. It's just something that's infinitely worse than that. And that'll go on for anything from like 10 to sort of 30 seconds, 40 seconds. But it just takes me off the planet. It's horrible.
I've seen it firsthand, mate.
Yeah.
Like, no two ways about it. That is...
Well, it's good, actually, and I've just found out something today. I've had 2 since I've been here. And I'd better tell Lynn when I get home, just so that she knows. She won't be happy with that, but I just said I want to keep on talking. The first one was
I wasn't
horrible.
here, Lynn. I don't know. He made me do it.
Yeah, that's the way forward. No, I mean, she understands what an old dinosaur I am, and the way I deal with things is to push myself on. I've got no other. I can't think back and rely on a bit of mercy from people. I just want to make the future better, and just keep on going. I can't just sit back and think that how ill I have and how ill I am now. And I spoke to him the other day on it, and it's just not operable. But unbelievably, as a Dr. Brown, he's a right hulking, great big monster of a bloke. I bet he plays rugby and drinks lots of beer after the match as well. But he's one of the pain doctors. Amazing team. They spend so much time ringing me up, finding out about things. Yeah. I'll tell you why in a minute. And I go and see them very regularly. And he said, listen, I don't know how to explain it to you, but this is a strange tumour. And it's sort of like a pair of tits, he said. That's what he told me. I said, should we call it a breast? And he said, oh, no, we'll call them tits. And he said, one goes, it's trying to be bigger than the other all the time. And it goes, boof, like that. And what it does is we're talking micromillimeters.
Yeah.
But that's enough inside your brain to cause havoc, and it spurts a load of chemicals out as well. And then the other one will do it, and then that one will do it, and that one will do it. And that's what's happening at the moment. That's what's happening in my head. And it's awful. And I look at myself in the mirror when I'm having a shave, and I'm thinking, what the hell's going on up there as I'm speaking? But everybody's alert to it. I think Lynn got a letter, we got a letter the other day through the system where they talk to each other about me, which we get piles of them because it's such an interesting subject, because I am a part of 1% of brain incidents that they've ever found.
Mad.
Like I'm dealing with at the moment. That's why I've become, I don't go and get 3 vials of blood taken out my arm. I go and get about 7. I never knew my arm had that much blood in it.
Yeah, you're like VIP, aren't you? No queuing, straight in the hospital. Thank you.
Yeah. I get a car sent. I'll get a car sent. They'll take me. I don't wait in a queue. Go in, and it's all done. But you got the pain. It's so many departments. St George's and the Royal Marsden, mate. What? They're just unbelievable places. Anybody that's got a moan about it, I understand. I'm in a bit of a unique position.
Yeah,
I understand that. But talking to the other people there, they might have had a little thing taken out, but they're looked after so well, and they're studied as a person and how they're dealing with it, and all that information helps them to deal with things in the future. And as much as there's nothing they can do for me, I just hope, and I'm probably right, that the information they get from me will help other people in the future. And I couldn't ask for more than that. I've had an innings and a half, I have, and it's I'm quite cool with it. If I'm giving something like that back to people, then what more could I ask for?
So basically, they've left you in that essence. There's nothing they can do, but they're charting how things progress.
Yes, yeah, they want to know the progression of it all. And the last time I spoke to Mr. Stapon, who is the surgeon, he's the guy, he normally operates on babies and young children, but it was such a unique situation with it encompassing these two major veins in my head that they brought him in to do it. And he's a remarkable bloke, so understates himself and what he's doing. But the last time I spoke to him, he said, look, he said these things change on a daily basis in brain surgery. We're only finding out the simple things now. Things will change. He said, could be in a year's time, I'll call you in and you can get rid of it. He said, it can happen that quickly. He said, but, as far as I'm concerned, I'm helping other people and that'll do for me. I think I'm happy with that. I'll take whatever comes next.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I'd be there in a together position to do a podcast interview if somebody had told me that piece of news. I really don't.
I got. That's not to say that I ain't an emotional man. I can quite easily shed a tear over the things that have happened, but those things, the things that they think might happen, haven't happened to me yet. And so many things changed while I was having the first tumour, finding out I've got a second one. So many things have changed that you didn't think would change. And I think they will. I mean, I've always got, as bad a carp angler as I am, I always think I'm going to catch one when I go. When I pack them rods in the car and drive like an idiot to the lake, I've got catching a carp on my mind. And all I've got now is wellness for me and Lynn to carry on living as we do. And I will be around to bore people for a long time yet, believe you me.
Yeah, I don't doubt that for a second, mate. There's some mindset and spirit there. Like, yeah, I don't know. There's various people in various parts of my life that I've seen that have gone through things, and obviously people are different, but that is strength, mate. When the stuff hits the fan, mate, how you react and how you've dealt with that is more than admirable, mate, because I wouldn't have. I can tell you that factually now.
I am me.
Yeah,
I was like it through the army, but I've seen strength beyond any of that when I've seen the things, and she'll hate me for keep repeating it, but she's been ill for 30 years. You wouldn't know it if you looked at her, and nobody believes she's only 23, I think. They think, no, she's an amazing person, and I get buckets fulls of strength off of her every single day of my life. And she has had a hard life, and that's to put it very, very mildly. And if I needed strength, mate, she provides it by the bucket load.
Daily for you now? Is it medication? Is it? Yeah.
I've got drugs, a drug for the nerve pains.
Yeah.
But I've got stuff for the inner pain, if you like, and it's people say, you imagine the worst headache you've had with a hangover or something. It's not a headache. It's so far beyond that. So I've got stuff. Yes, I can take it away. The trouble is, do I want to take a lot of that?
No.
I would rather live in pain than be a drug addict.
Yeah.
And that is what I could become if I start taking all this rubbish. I mean, I hate drugs for reasons I won't go into. It's nothing to do with me personally, but the things I've seen around the world more than anything on this planet. And, I can go in and have a supper. I will probably do it when I get home because I can feel my head starting to fry. But I've got Oromorph, I've got morphine tablets, I've got all kinds of stuff that I could take. But I probably take about. I hope they're not listening.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
but it ain't a lot of it. Probably less than 50% of what they expect me to take. But if I want to go fishing, then I want to go fishing. If my head is putting me on my knees, then I have felt so ill sometimes when I've got to run, and it's like I said at the beginning, you get a bite, and that's what carp fishing does. That's the beauty of it.
That is the drug, isn't it? That is the drug.
Whoever you are, there are greater things about carp fishing. The world, unfortunately, they're making lakes more like people's living rooms now. Making it more like the environment you're trying to escape from, really, than anything else. Plugged into a telly and the satellite. Oh God, unbelievable. But you still get nature. There still needs to be there. Your kingfisher swooping along, and I've got I always remember getting a liner off of a sparrow down at Ashmead in Somerset. It blew my mind.
Yeah.
This fish, he just come round the islands. You could hear the wind under his wings. It's so close to it and so quiet. And it's those sort of things that make fishing so good for me. But yeah, as long as I'm enjoying it all, I'll keep.
Is it limited your fishing in any way? Is it massively?
Yeah,
so?
without a doubt. I went about 5 weeks ago. I went up to the Cotswolds. My friend of mine, I first met him on that chalk farm we talked about earlier on. Steve Obden. He's got Pochard Lake. He owns it up in the Cotswolds, and I got there and fish, and I had the most stunning 33-pounder up there on that trip, and 4 other fish. And I came home. I knew I wasn't right. I went up to Willow, and I did a night up at Willow just because I wanted to get out. Sometimes I've got to drive myself on a bit needlessly. I understand that. But after that, I couldn't go. So I ain't been for about 4 weeks. I just haven't been ready to.
Yeah.
But I will go. I'm going to go on Tuesday, and I'm going up to the North Lake, and we spoke about that earlier on with Martin Gardner up there, and I just think it's an oasis to me in a world of commercial mayhem. It's just Yateley in as pure a form as it possibly can be. And, you walk there and, the writings of the Hearn and Malin and Nigel Sharp and people like that, it'll all come flowing through your mind because it looks the same. It hasn't been sort of laid to waste, and swims and planks and rubbish have been put in. There's some of the old stuff there, of course there is, but that's the world I want to escape to. And things started off really well up there before Christmas. First session I did, I had a 23-pound common, which that'd do for me.
Yeah,
I'd have been well happy. Yeah, and then I had a 30-pound 10-ounce mirror and a 34, and I drove home like, whoa, it was lovely. And I was it was fishing quite difficultly. Some of the regular guys were doing well, though. Yeah, they're a bit more in tune with it, and I expect that. And I had a fish every time I went there, and that was kind of good. I had a couple of blanks in the end, and I just didn't think, if I don't think I'm physically capable of taking on a challenge, I'd rather not go. I'd rather go somewhere where I think I can just be a little bit more comfortable and nearer to home. And Willow Park, honestly, if I had a 5-ounce lead and a decent rod, I could get I could get that lead in Willow from my house. So and those people over there, Mark and all his team, James and that in his shop, just great people, And as I say, a lot of my experiences in everything I've done are more as much about the people as it is about the fish. And I think whilst ever I can maintain my idea of carp fishing, then I think I'll be happy. You
use the word maintain. We're about to sort of talk about something relatively exclusive, but you ain't maintaining, despite the fact that things are as they are and you're out there fishing again and you're enjoying your time. You're actually going to start something, mate, which is definitely not maintaining. It's sort of pushing on into a bit of a modern day realm, isn't it?
Well, we've talked about friends, haven't we?
Yes.
And I just want to mention a few that I might not have mentioned, but there's Keith Jenkins and Dave Lane. They're the reason I'm sat here talking to you, and the reason, bless their hearts, for what I'm about to tell you. Tim Paisley. Now, he doesn't know this, and a lot of people don't know him. He is a very driven man. And that drive sometimes in carp fishermen, in any walk of life, can make people take a bit of a disjointed view of people. I don't know how to put this. When I told you my father died last year, I didn't get on with my father, and I'll leave that there. But Tim, in later years, acted like a surrogate father to me, someone I could talk to on a level that I needed to talk to about things. And I remember, bless her heart, and I'll love her forever, when Mary died. And Tim used to ring me practically every other day, and he could talk to me like I'm probably saying something I shouldn't know, but maybe like he wouldn't talk to other people. Yeah. And I've felt the same with him. He's a wonderful, wonderful man, and a real emblem and something we should wave about as far as the world of carp fishing goes, because he's had a massive hand in creating what we're doing today. I've met again through carp fishing a man who saved my life many years ago, and I mean saved my life. Flew over from the Middle East on a plane, hired a car at Heathrow, came to my house, picked me up, took me to Twickenham to see England play South Africa while I was recovering, dropped me off at home, drove back to Heathrow, got on a plane and went back to the Middle East. And with a friend like that I rarely see, that's what friends are. And I don't see Keith a lot, I don't see Dave a lot, but they're great people, for completely different reasons. And Tim, again, another different person, but all of those people have driven me on. And what you're talking about is me doing a YouTube channel.
Go on.
I know. I get... Now the writing seems to have died. I think people... I don't want to start like I'm tooting my own horn or anything, but I think people actually enjoyed the way that I wrote. I'm not trying to blow smoke out of people's backsides. I'm not trying to create things that aren't there. I'm just trying to enhance the wonderfulness of carp fishing. That's what my writing's really all about, and what a good laugh and a good time it is. And I think people will know that. And but now that the written word really isn't part of it anymore, is it? And I feel so sorry for them. It's awful looking at a newsstand now, and you just don't see them. Carpology and Total Carp, bless their hearts. And I just hope Joe can keep it going for a while. The written word to me means everything. It makes your mind work for you. Making up those scenarios that person's writing about, it makes you work to achieve it, not seeing somebody tying a rig and this is how you cast it out and then you reel them in and that.
He's watched my latest YouTube video as well.
It's so boring. So I thought, well, I'll do one and I'll tell people about it. Now, the biggest question I get asked is about what's happened over the last 4 years.
Yeah,
okay.
Of course.
So I thought we'll do that. Now, I have a friend, not because of the tumour, but I met him in a time around it, which is Ali Buttman. He runs all this Crowthorne in England. Wonderful. I love little tackle shops. You can go in and talk about fishing. There's other tackle shops are like walking into a supermarket, aren't they? Awful places. But this is lovely. You can come in and have a little chat and a cup of tea. I love it. Anyway, I met him over at Ollie Bush and we've got on so well. You know what I mean? It's unbelievable. And he's got ideas and knowledge of things. It's like he's talking Russian to me sometimes when he talks about all this iPodification and everything. But and we're doing it with him. And we spoke about money that you can earn from it. Of course you do. That's going to be part of it. But I think my story of the last 4 years is probably... an excuse for me to get things off my chest, get the truth and everything that happened out in one go, which will be the first 4 series, and then we'll think about whatever charges we want after that. But yes, Ian Chillcott Carp Angler, it's going to be called. You dial that up in your phone, that's what you get. There's no messing about with it. You're not looking for airy-fairies carp tricks or something like that they call these things. It's me. And I'm talking about my carp fishing. But the main thing out of all of it, I don't know if what I'm about to say is rude or not, and I don't really care, but I don't watch a lot of it. I have to say that. But the stuff I see looks like a shop mannequin that can talk in a shop, and they want to tell you how good they are and what they call. And this is brilliant. And this is my version of the rig, so I call it the Billy Bob rig, because I invented this really, but it's exactly the same as the hair rig, but your hair is about quarter of a millimetre longer or something, and it's all about those people, and I don't like that. Yes, I want to tell people about my experiences. Yes, my experiences can help people to catch carp, but the main thing is to find out about other people's experiences. The reason I loved reading was because I could read about what other people were doing and the fun they got out of it, and I want people to ask us questions, and I can answer those questions, and that will lead into other things, and that kind of scenario can go on to the end of time, and it really can't it?
Yeah, of course.
Because there are so many questions that people want, and I think a lot of the basic ones probably ring true with a lot of people, but there's little things you can talk about. I mean, I've got so many things to talk about in carp fish. We quite literally have skimmed the surface today.
Oh, yeah.
And there's so much more going on. I mean, a lot of people think I've never been abroad. Yes, I have.
Yeah.
You know, I did 4 trips one year to Rainbow Lake and had a wonderful time. I went to some other lakes in France and had a great time. And my experience is, I've been to Russia, for God's sake, not fishing, but we went to a carp show there twice, which was amazing. Went and stood outside the Kremlin.
Wow.
Yeah, the first time I ever thought I'd see Russia was 750 feet above the ground as I was parachuting into battle. That's what I thought I'd see Russia. Bless their hearts. But I did get myself a little furry cap with the
classic.
red star in it. I had to buy one. but no, it's been an incredible time, and I have quite literally so much to talk about. You know, even though I've written books, I think Like My Fire was a little bit more what's the word I'm looking for, complicated little things in life going on. But like Fan in the Flames was really a catalogue of lakes I went to and the fish that I caught, and I'm not really into that. That's not the stories that I want. I want to know really what goes on between it, how you got there in the first place. You know, because it ain't easy for people. That's the bit that everybody, when I see people talking about it, they think, okay, I used this rig and I caught this carp. So if you go off and use this rig and do what I did, you'll catch carp. No, you won't, because you're not like them. Your life is completely different to a man who's got 6 kids and a mortgage on a house. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And a million other scenarios that you could create. You know, we don't want to be so specific, and I think if we share problems and talk about the things we've done, then people can get something out of it. That's what I want.
Yeah.
You know, and as I said, we have talked about money, but it ain't what I want to get out of it.
No.
I want to get knowledge for other people to help make them not worry so much about rigs, for instance, and concentrate more on where you put it and the way you carry out things. But, you know, I don't know it all. I'll never know it all, and that's why I still go carp fishing.
Yeah, I don't think anyone will ever know it all. I think if you think you do, you're,
Oh, there's plenty of them out there, boy, believe you.
Ali over here, mate. He's running the tackle shop saying, buy this, buy that, buy that.
No, Ali doesn't, because he puts his hands on either side of my head and tries to squeeze out all the energy. And he's pretty good at it, because he's built like the size of
a big old
brick
unit,
doodah house. Yeah, he is a unit, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's why I don't argue with him.
Better not be quick, because then we're all in trouble.
Absolutely.
And that is in sort of imminent launch.
I think probably a couple of weeks after this has gone out, I think we will start it. It's quite difficult because we've talked about it. My dinosaur ways, I don't know what it is. I mean, Ali, for putting my things on that I have to do at my end, has given me a 16 giggle bottle thingy that I put into the doofer, which feeds the thingies into the wanger doodah, and then I doof on the booth and give it to him. Or something like that.
I've seen
it. I just don't understand it, but...
that's good. You don't need to.
But I come here and I film. We're going to do it all from behind here. We might do the odd one from my man's cave or something at home.
Yeah.
Just to change the scenery. But, I mean, to talk about fishing in a place where fishing needs to be talked about is the right scenario. I love it. I love little tackle shops. It's cool. Yeah. And, one of my best mates owns the gaff. That'll do for me. Yeah,
I've seen at the start. I've seen some banter, mate. It's exactly what carp fishing is when you go out on the bank and you have a laugh and you're not, as you say, let's say, not scripted, and it is that sort of relationship have, that stuff you talk about.
Well, people might notice here, I have got no Fox clothing on.
Yeah,
that's all. I could sit here with my hoodie on or whatever and all the rest of it. Yeah, when I'm not carp fishing, I am not carp fishing.
Yeah,
you know, and I don't want to force things down people's throats. I said in the first version of the YouTube, the first program, I say in it, I have been 20 years almost now working with Fox. longer than anybody else in the trade as a consultant. I'm talking about, I've not been taken on to work in the factory or in an office or anything. I've been a consultant on the bank for 20 years, and it's nearly 30 years now in mainline baits. It's incredible, isn't it? Yeah. Absolutely incredible. And I'm very, very proud of that. So I don't need to. They know what I'm using. I hope most people do. Yeah. If I'm going to show you as many products, and there won't be many of them because I'm not a very riggy person, then it will be Fox material and mainline bait. But I'm not. I think the worst thing you can do is just try and force it down people's throats. I just get so annoyed with people that do it, and especially when they've just changed from one tackle company to another, and then they say, "Oh, this one's the best." That's not you, mate, like at all, no. Is it? Even if that was the case, it's not you. It's not how you do it, and I think that's why, obviously, there's the whole appreciation and support around everything that you've been through, which is absolutely inspirational. And still, to this day, I'm standing here now, inspired. Jeez, man, like there's some stuff you complain about, but you are like, I complain about some stupid stuff, and you think, oh, sort your head out, lad, because people are going through a lot worse, and you need that reality check. But that's inspirational. But all the way throughout what you've done, and I've seen a lot of you in media growing up and looked up to the things you've done before I was involved in the industry. You can see that you're undistinguishably you. You've never there's no fabrication there. It's just chilly, isn't it? But that's a rare quality. I'm really sorry about that, but that's the truth. No, genuinely, that is. And I look forward to seeing the YouTube channel, mate, because it is definitely you. I just think if I can get people involved with it as well. Yeah. If I'd like to see some photos of other people. I get as much pleasure from what other people are doing in their carp fishing as probably as I do of my own. And especially, I get so many messages on Facebook or what, all these little things that tell me, oh, I did this and I did that and it works and I've caught loads. And, I've got I'm not going to mention his name, a soldier, and he's suffering terribly with PTSD after the horrors of Afghanistan, and I've tried to help him out. And I still do, and I'm not going to mention his name, but I know he's found himself a lake he just didn't know when and never rod from it. He did, he's a good fisherman, but he just lost it. And now he's found it because I've helped him through it, and all those kids around me, and I'm very, very proud. I've got no children. Lynn and I, we ain't got no kids, but the people that I've helped, I'd love to tell you some of the things that they were doing, but it would individualise them, it would get picked out, and they're just wonderful people. And last night, and I'm not going to mention his name, but he helped Lynn and I over both periods that I've been ill, running around, and he knocked on the door last night. And I am a fiend for Marmite. When I'm at home, if I'm at home those 5 days and I'm 2 days on the bank, I will do 2 medium jars of Marmite a week. Yeah. I love it. I pour it onto my toast. That's horrendous, mate. But the peak or the ultimate is that XO stuff they do now, and you can't find it anywhere. And he knocked on the door last night. He said, "Chili, I just needed I've found these, I've got them for you." And to me, that answers all your questions, you know what I mean? If you're right with other people, they'll be right with you. And if you don't mind, like Marmite, and I've made you feel sick, I'm really sorry about that, but I love it. I live on the stuff. Tell me that. If ever the missus brings someone driving around to you, you're taking it as a good. Lynn hates it. I'm a right messy, and I get it on the handle of the cupboard or something, and she comes in going, "Oh, can you wipe this off my hand?" But I love it. I do love it. It keeps me alive. Mate, I've said it before in this very interview. You are an absolute inspiration, mate, and you continue to be so throughout everything that you're going through, which is testament to you, your character, and also like what you've achieved in the industry. Even without everything that's gone on, how you stay motivated in changing climate, shall we say, of carp fishing is definitely an inspirational thing. Before I let you go, because I appreciate your time and I think I've added to your head fuzz by just chomping this ear of yours nearest to me. Yeah, he's getting a bit. Sit in a dark. Most people sit in a dark room after they've had a bit of time with me on this interview, mate. Oh, bless you. I've got some quick fire questions. Yes. A little light-hearted end. Okay. Be as ruthless as you like. Say what you ever need to. The first question is: venue you love to fish but you haven't. Venue I'd love to fish but I haven't. Burfield.
Burfield.
Yeah, definitely Burfield. I just think over what's happened over the last 4 years, I probably never will. I don't think I'll be fit enough to throw what needs to be thrown at Burfield. But yeah, I mean, the ultimate goal obviously is the Burfield Common. But
I'll sort you a Parabarrow. You'll be around there in a second, mate. You'll be fine.
It's not that easy, unfortunately. Yeah, I know what you're saying, but yeah, maybe I'll drink some rocket fuel and get around there. I don't know.
3 anglers you'd like to share a social with as of this moment?
Well, 2 of them I sort of have, but the first one would be Richard Walker. I just simply to shake his hand. I've met his wife years ago, and I shook her hand at a Carp Society show, one of the early ones she came to. It was a wonderful, just to meet her, just to say hello, you know, and the second one would be Chris Yates, but I've done some filming with Chris Yates, Fishing TV. They never released it like it should have been. I did a massive long interview with him down in Somerset twice, and we had some great times. We did a thing for Tight Lines as well, and he is... I don't love people. That's not the right word, but I think I love him. He's just such a lovely guy.
Yeah.
And more genuine than the biggest bag of genuine things I've ever seen. So, yeah, he would be at the social, definitely. And this is nothing to do with anybody else, you know, like Keith and Dave and all those people, wonderful. But Peter Springate. And Peter's never realised the hold he's had on me through carp fishing. And... you know, I'm not the quiet man that Peter is. I'm probably the complete opposite. But Pete Springate, and it's nothing to do with me moving in a swim you haven't caught a fish from, and yeah, I'll probably say sorry to him a few times after catching that jack while he was in that swim for 7 days. But Peter Springate.
Yeah.
Just simply because I think you've got 3 people there that re-energised the carp fishing world. Well, Walker made it.
Yeah, exactly.
Really. And that still stands the test of time. His year on Redmar in 1980, you know, that fish... You know, broke Walker's record in the end, and and simply by the way that he fishes and the simplicity of it all, and he stuck with it and done what he wants to do, the way that he wants to do it. And Sir Pete, well, he's just Sir Pete. He's just such a wonderful human being, and I could chat to Pete forever. Although he don't say a lot back to you, I don't think, Pete. He nods his head and, I do. That's all right. I love him. But those are my 3.
I love that. It's a very carpy 3. Biggest threat to carp fishing?
Biggest threat to carp fishing? Now, I could be awfully politically duty, couldn't I? But I'm not going to be. I think the biggest threat to carp fishing is the amount of carp we put into our waters. And I'm sorry to say that, but this is... I mean, some things I'm going to say are always going to be a little bit not what people want to hear, but carp fishing became so popular through the efforts of very few people to catch very few fish. And looking at the waters as we used to look at them is completely different to the way that you look at a water now. And it's an age thing, isn't it? You know, people don't talk about, I'd like to catch a 40-pounder in my life now. They want to know if they can get 2 or 3 from a water in a day. And that is not an unfeasible request. And I think the more the fish become easier to catch, the less mystery there is around it. And that might sound old and old-fashioned, but to me, carp fishing was me against nature and the fish, and not me against other people, or not me saying I've caught more carp than you, I've caught a bigger one than you. And that seems to be the thing now. There seems to be no happiness. There was a conversation earlier on with a chap who said he had a few 20s and a couple of 33s. It was a bit of a rubbish trip. And I, pardon? Really? Yeah. Oh, my God, I'd be flick-flacking up the motorway with my hair on fire all the way home. You know, and it's different, isn't it? We all see things in different ways, but that's the way I see it. Fair. I think there should be a limit on the number of carp and just give it the edge back.
Fair. Country and Western music or drum and bass? You've got to pick one.
Can I not mention another?
You can throw. You got to pick between them. Then you can throw in your
okay, I'm going to go for country and western.
Good.
Okay, because there is absolutely no point in listening to music that isn't actually played by anybody but created by a computer. That's my first thing.
Nice.
Secondly, country and western is something that's probably created most of the music we listen to anyway.
This is a good answer. This is the best answer I've had for this.
And thirdly, I've stood in an audience when I take two bands, AC/DC and Lynyrd Skynyrd, have opened up on stage, and it just blows you away.
Favourite carp fishing season? You've already said that, haven't you?
Yeah, winter.
Winter.
Oh, I love winter. I just think because the challenge becomes greater. And you've got so many places. Oh, these places shut. You get loads of it in fishing. They don't take boilies. You've got to use a pop-up. You don't get anything on a pop-up. All that. They don't take a surface bait. But winter fishing, just it raises the bar for me. And you can do more planning because there's less people there. And you can fish as naturally as I think you should be able to because there's nobody there.
I like that, and I know the answer to this one. Fish 20 years in the future or 20 years in the past?
Yeah, I am an old man. So we're going as far back as you like.
Football or rugby?
Rugby.
Biggest regret?
Biggest regret? What, of my life or fishing?
Yeah, yes, biggest regret, mate.
Blimey, that is a phenomenal... I haven't got probably as many as you think. I think my biggest regret was probably not trying to get Lynn sooner than I did, because I think my life would have been an infinitely better place. It's a wonderful place now, but knowing her, since I've known her, just things are just beyond my imagination, and I've got a very broad imagination, but no, it would be. I just wish I'd met her sooner. But that's not really a regret, is it?
No, it's a wish.
No, it's not a regret. But I regret not meeting her sooner then. But no.
I'll let you off on that.
No, I'm going to say that because, well, I owe her something when I'm talking like this, and that's good.
Yeah.
Stop. I'm going to cry.
We've done well here, haven't we?
We have done well, very well.
Bite out of cancer evening. I was in the... you did this talk, bite out of cancer. God. I was in the crowd, mate. I had to look away.
That was hard, mate.
This is no lie, Chilly. I had to bite my lip to the pain to override me crying.
It's hard. When I do it publicly, I'm kind of cool here because we're sitting down talking like a couple of mates, and that's kind of cool. But when you stand up and try and embrace what happened in an hour and a half to a few people, and it sort of, when you talk about, the hospital incident at Christmas, and you can feel yourself going.
Oh, I couldn't do it, mate. I was gone.
Hard work. Well, that bloke, there's a lad, oh no, I shouldn't say any names, he does some very skillful stuff he does, and he came up and he was just crying his eyes out.
Yeah, mate.
And everybody was the same. I met an ex-9 Squadron bloke that I knew, Guy Petts, Chris Henderson, who ran the Pegasus pub in Aldershot. They were there, and his son, Guy's son, and Nicky's son, he goes carp fishing, and he came up after. He said, I've never done anything like it in my life,
Yeah.
I mean, he's a monster of a man, and to see him like a bit, oof,
yeah.
But it was wonderful to see him there. I didn't know they would be there, but...
If you weren't a carp angler, what would you be?
I'd probably be dead. But my whole thing, I did a close protection course.
Yeah.
When I was in the army, and loads of other different things like that. And I had loads of job offers. I know so many people out there in the world of security who do things for top level people. There's lots of work in Afghanistan and Iraq. Maybe not Afghanistan so much now. I would have probably gone off down that line.
Security.
Yeah, but I've got friends. There's another mate of mine, a very, very good friend, Mark Brown. And the three of us, I mentioned a guy called Mark Denton earlier on up in Northampton, with the three of us, Denton, Brownie and me, we go fishing together once a year and just talk over old times. But he was a prison officer for a while when he got out of the army, and then he got into the security thing, and he did extremely well in it, mate. He's a proper high level guy, and very quiet. You'd never know anything about him. He never talks about himself. Caught an inordinately wonderful carp the other week, and apart from his wife and me and probably Mark Denton, nobody will ever know. He doesn't want that kind of thing. But yeah, there were a lot of jobs in that industry that I could have probably taken up, but that's probably what I would have done. And
you can get me out of crowthorn angling without spending any money if you want, mate. It's quite difficult.
That's difficult, isn't it?
Shops is a nightmare, isn't it?
It is a nightmare. I've shoplifted.
I've seen it.
I have shoplifted.
I weren't going to dob you in, mate.
You know I'm going to forget about it.
I weren't going to dob you in. I saw you going through the shelves at the bottom here at the start, and I was like, he's definitely having swiping some here, isn't it?
I can help it.
Yeah.
It's so sad, isn't it? Oh,
Another
sorry.
deep one, eh?
Yeah.
Best piece of advice you've been given.
Best piece of advice I've been given. Blimey. Yeah. I would say, and it's got nothing to do with military, and I have to say it, I sound like a boring person, don't I? I always remember reading in Walker's book, 1 hour in the right place is worth 5 in the wrong. And I still maintain, when he wrote that in 1953, it's as much relevance today as it was then.
You can't beat a bit of Walker, mate, can you?
No, Richard Walker, he changed it from, like I said, carp, and then you turn a couple of pages and it says big carp, and you wonder what the hell that is all about.
Final question.
Final one. Okay.
Night in with the missus or a night out on the bank?
You know the answer to that.
Both.
No, I'd rather be with Lynn every day of my life.
Good save.
She's the best friend I'll ever have, and the best person I've ever spent any time with. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, no, Lindy Lou.
Chilly, you've been an absolute star, mate. It has been an honour to interview you, mate.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you to Ali for letting us in Crowthorne.
Yo, Ali, Crowthorne English.
We've taken up a fair bit of your time, boy. But no, thank you guys for watching and listening. I'll be back soon with another Nash Off the Hook podcast. But Chilly, thank you so much again. And can we get a Light My Fire to end, mate?
Light my fire!
Good man, you star. Cheers, mate.
Take care. Bye-bye.